We're supposed to not have none. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Bristol Town Council meeting of May 25th, and we are going to be led in our Pledge of Allegiance from the Colt Andrews student government. Who's coming up to do that? Everybody? Come on up.
Hey, everybody.
Come on up. Sure, why not?
Line up so everybody can see you on TV.
All right. We'll mail the flags.
We're going to use this one.
We're going to use this.
Everybody all set? If everybody could rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Well, I'll tell you, Mary just made a great suggestion. Why don't you face that way so the camera can see you?
They can come around this way.
And we'll all pledge allegiance to that flag.
Okay, well,
Tell us when you're ready.
you're going to come back here. Put right back here, and then you can all get a nice, your whole family can see you, make sure. I think these
Mary used to be a teacher. She's doing a great job with this.
Take the camera off the stand, Mark.
Go ahead.
There you go.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Go ahead. Love it.
Every way. I promise to work hard, celebrate success, and help others. Together we will succeed. We are Colt Andrews.
Yeah. So as our student government sits down, I'll share a couple of points about them. The president is Ren Ferris. She's in 5th grade. Vice president is Liv Wheeler. She's in 5th grade. Secretary Madeline Duchesne, if I'm saying that correctly, in 5th grade. Treasurer is James Faulkner. And the parliamentarian is Abby Bratzos. There's also 2 classroom representatives from the 3rd grade. There's a total of 18 kids here tonight. Did I do that right? Yeah? All right. Okay. Student government meets every Wednesday for Colt Andrews School. In fact, I was there this morning at 8 a.m. I got to talk with the class, and it was a pleasure. Thank you for having me there. Their events in the last year included they did Cents for Seeds, raising with change with donations of $500 for plants and flowers to enhance the garden in front of Andrews, which is really neat. They collected 147 items for the Bristol Animal Shelter. And as you can tell, they are very, very involved, and we, the council and the town, appreciate you taking the time to come down tonight. We appreciate what you do, and stay involved with this. This is sometimes a lot of fun. Actually, it's most of the time it's a lot of fun. So thank you for being with us tonight. Nice job.
Welcome.
Great job, guys.
Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, the first item on this evening's agenda is the consent agenda.
A motion to approve the consent agenda.
Seconded?
There's a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is submission of minutes of previous meetings. The item A1 is a sealed set of minutes from executive session of December 16, 2015. The motion would be to unseal the minutes, and if the council so chooses, to approve.
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
need a motion to approve, or was that for both?
I took it as for both.
Yeah.
And the next is item A2, meeting of May 4th.
So moved.
Seconded?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is item C1. This is ordinance 2016-09. It's the first reading. This would basically to allow for a new section for public works-related fees and charges. As it has been the council's practice, basically what this ordinance will do will set the stage for the council to have a fee resolution which would be independent of the town code, but related via this section.
Make a motion this constitutes the first reading for Section 24-6, fees and charges of Chapter 24 of the ordinances.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is the licensing section. The first is petition of Kerry Jacob doing business as Fresh Table of 423 Hope Street, requests council consideration for a sidewalk use license. You have recommendations provided by the Town Administrator, Director of Public Works, Code Compliance Coordinator, and Chief of Police, all to approve.
I would move that this be approved, but I'd like to also, after a second, make a comment.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
I think we're observing that there needs to be a little more care by the organizations that have the sidewalk permission to abide strictly by our very definite ordinance, which specifies how much can be occupied as a function of the width of the sidewalk and distance to the curbing. Many of the organizations are abiding by that, but a few are not, and I think that we ought to make sure that the cognizance of that is firmly taken.
Duly noted.
Mr. Administrator, maybe we could ask the Code Compliance Officer to review the current state there. Perfect. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next is the petition of Marcos Vasconcelos, 117 Last Street, Fall River, requesting council consideration for a hawkers and peddlers license. You have the recommendation of the Town Administrator and Chief of Police to deny.
Upon those recommendations, I make a motion we deny this petition from the applicant.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, and we're going to have a little discussion about that. I spoke with the clerk a couple of days ago in regards to this, and I asked, we have never said yes to, we'll call it standing hawkers and peddlers license for a multitude of reasons. And I thought it was appropriate to share with not only the applicant, but everyone who's considering doing this, why we keep saying no, because we've never said yes, and I actually confirmed that with the clerk. But, Mr. Clerk, when someone comes in and asks you for this, what is your guidance on something like this?
Well, typically what we will advise them, Mr. Chairman, is that it's not something that, remaining stationary is not something that is allowed, okay? And I always use the example of the ice cream truck. Okay, the license that we provide would be for the ice cream truck that goes from neighborhood to neighborhood, rings a bell, people come out, they buy something from the proprietor of the truck, and then once the customers have gone away, so does the truck goes on to the next neighborhood. Okay, people will often at that point, they will say, well, we really would like to remain stationary, and we sort of quiz them as to whether or not this has something to do with the 4th of July celebration, because that's a very common thing that street vendors do like to get involved in that. And what we explain is that 4th of July licenses are issued specifically by the 4th of July committee. It's something that the council delegated to them long before any of us can remember. That has been the case, and also that they are able to participate in things like fairs and festivals, the farmers markets, any other places where there would be a sort of a gathering of like businesses that would be participating in this sort of activity, and we encourage them to do that. If they do persist, saying they want to follow on and have a stationary location, we advise them that they can come to the council and ask for permission, but that the likelihood is very, very remote that the council would consider that.
Okay, thank you for
Okay.
that clarity.
Yeah.
Are you Mr. Vasconcelos?
I'm Attorney Richard Kuhn. I'm assisting Mr. Vasconcelos in starting his new business.
Welcome.
Thank you. I believe that Mr. Vasconcelos' plan was not necessarily to remain stationary. I think it was more in line of an ice cream truck where he would dispense sandwiches and then move on.
I explain it
Yeah, you can
further.
explain.
Good evening, Council. My name is Marcos Vasconcelos. I have an operations degree in business management. I worked in food manufacturing for over 10 years. I'm HACCP certified. I've applied with the Board of Health in Rhode Island and gotten my licensing to be a food operations manager. My intention is not to be stationary. What we've designed and engineered is a mobile vehicle that can yes, serve as a stationary business for an event or a festival or fair like you had explained, but in a way that can also be very, very mobile and in and out. For example, for a local business who would want a catered lunch, we can pull up, serve lunch to 20 people in less than 10 minutes and be on our way. And our intention is to set up a route and network and associate with local businesses to help promote revenue in the town with a new creative idea, with a quick, ready-to-eat, real food menu, very organic, very homemade and authentic, and just get some good, wholesome Cherie sandwiches out there with some new businesses and network with local town businesses that don't have a food venue and could incorporate together, similar to the antique car show and the Sip and Dip down the street. I was just driving by and we stopped in there. An antique car show networked with the Sip and Dip, and together food and cars made an event, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Can I ask Andy a question? If they were going to go do, like, as he explained, a quick kind of catered lunch at a job site, would he need a license for that, or would that be between the business owner and Mr. Vasconcelos?
If he were not selling to the public, if he did have something where he's going to be totally parked on private property and not selling to the public, then he wouldn't need the license. If there's going to be any public involved, if he's going to be parking there on the private property in the public, that's what's not allowed.
See, I think that's the difference. I mean, I can't, I think if you were going to work out something with the owners of a business, that you were going to go every Thursday, or every day, or whatever, I think that's, in my opinion, that's between you and them. But I think we've said no to people, even where businesses have said, I'll have this food truck come and stay permanently, we've said no to them. And I don't think we want, I'm speaking for myself, I don't think we'd want to see a situation where, you're driving up and down neighborhood streets. I think it would be impossible anyway to keep your food fresh and hot, and but if we open that door to one business, then they got kids in the neighborhoods, and we don't need a lot of trucks going through that. So, I mean, I don't see, I'm not sure that a license from us is what's needed if your intent is to do more like private functions.
I'm aware of the ordinances in the town. My intention isn't to market the main downtown area or the beaches or public parks. I only wanted the licensing so that I could get into, I didn't want to bend any rules if I'm parked on the sidewalk of two businesses and hitting both at the same time with a catered lunch. So I wanted to approach the town and get the licensing in place in order to, my intention certainly isn't to interrupt any business in the town. I'm looking to bring business into the town.
But the plan that your petitioners, when we attach this to petitioners, is usually for an event that's requested in the past. What the councilwoman, I think, is alluding to is, what you're providing for these businesses, you're also acting as a caterer, so that's your private business. But when you're talking about sidewalk use, different venues that this council might not be privy to on a daily basis with your food truck, because that's what it basically is a food truck. That's what our concerns are, and that's why we look to our solicitor for the zoning and the different laws that are pertaining to our town. Not that we don't welcome businesses, it's just I think there's a lot under that umbrella and that scope that you're explaining to us that I would be uncomfortable with just what you provided. So,
What would we need to do in order to comply with your approval?
Have you tried to reach out to some private businesses where you can start to
Well, we've gotten
network in? And
We've gotten licensing in several other towns. We're putting the truck together now. I have the Board of Health approving the plans for the layout of the truck. And so as it's progressed, we've invested as it's grown. And so we've gotten some licensing in place already. Licensing with the Board of Health is approved. They're approving the layout now. We have the vehicle, and we're building the truck. And so this is the last town in our scope of business for the route that we had established along the Rhode Island coastline.
Essentially, the entire East Bay is approved except for Bristol, so.
We are trendsetters.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I joke, but obviously I don't joke about your business.
So just trying to get an innovative new idea out there, similar to Adele's, but with a quick sandwich.
Well, I think that you presented this in as good a way as you can, but the trouble is we've never been very keen about this sort of thing. We have an awful lot of organizations in the town which provide food, And we also have quite a congested set of streets where parking is difficult. We're bothered greatly already by the bus that comes through every half hour and blocks traffic. So, with some regret, I will vote against this being accepted because I don't think it's appropriate in our town.
And actually, that's why I wanted to start off with an explanation from the clerk and kind of give you some history, knowing that it has no personal connection to you. In fact, I love the name of your business. I don't know if everybody heard that. It was My Sharico. I mean, that's a great name for a business. So, it really is. But we've had a precedent to say no on this. I know we have a motion and a second. Did you want to add anything else or anyone else before we vote on this?
There is, go ahead,
I
Councilwoman.
was going to say, like, when you ask what else can you do, I think that, I don't know when your business will be up and running, but, or your truck, I mean, would be to pursue the festivals and the fairs and, the various events that we have, and then like, I can envision, where there's large parking lots, like in the industrial parks that we have, if you work something out with the management there, or the businesses, that you could just be there, and if it's true that it's a few, half an hour, you're going to be there, whatever, on their private property, then you don't really need anything from us. But I don't think we've said no, we get these requests on a regular basis, and we've said no to just about to all of them.
To all of them, yeah.
As far as either being stopped in a parking lot, because people have said, I've got the approval of such and such a business, and they'll let me stay there all day, and we've said, no, you can't do that, and we certainly don't want a food truck just driving up and down streets, just like an ice cream place, or to pull people over. I mean, I think that's a danger, just, you can't have too many of those, my view.
I'll respect the council's decision, and I'd like to just leave it in at this. We've worked with Hope in Maine to establish our menu. We own and will control the entire manufacturing process of our product. The intention of the food trucks is to merely get the product out into the market with the future intent of establishing retail locations and growing the fleet and market area with more and more retail locations, fully controlling the entire manufacturing process is the goal for the business. So unfortunately, if Bristol doesn't want to be a part of that, I respect your decision in any case.
Well, due to our ordinances and like I said, those certain restrictions compared to the festivals, and we are making progress. Just recently, we did approve our first food truck festival at Independence Park. I don't know if you want to inquire with our Bristol Fire Department, but they're holding the event. So, and we did visit this, and we do have a lot of discussion pertaining to the hawk and peddler's license, pertaining to your situation of food trucks, because we know it's becoming a norm across the nation, and how it works with businesses and whatnot. So, even though I'm going to deny this petition tonight, I am always willing to establish dialogue going forward as business plans change, entrepreneurships that come to the town, and have a conversation with this council. So,
as you can hear, there's no malice, it's kindness where it's coming from. So if there's nothing else, so the motion is to deny, and there was seconded, so all in favor of denying?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to denying? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good luck with your business.
Yeah.
The next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item D3. This is the petition of Madeline Grimo on behalf of the Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church Feast Committee, a request for one-day dancing and entertainment licenses for July 15, 16, and 17, 2016.
I move approval as long as all the ordinances of the town and rules are obeyed.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next petition is from Athena Flowers, doing business as Green Eggs, 576 Metacom Avenue. Requests council consideration for a victualling license. This is a new owner for an existing location, business under the same name. You have recommendations provided by the town administrator, fire chief, and chief of police, all to approve.
Are you team?
Motion to approve the...
So we have a motion to approve. I'm going to get there in a sec.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. This is your 30-second commercial. Go ahead.
Oh, my gosh. So I'm going to be taking over Green Eggs operation. I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with it. We'll be open from 6 to 1, serving breakfast and all kinds of specialty omelets and French toasts and pancakes, so hope to see many of you.
Well, hope Sue trained you well, because she's got a great place, and good luck to you too, Sue, with whatever you're doing
Yeah.
now.
So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Best of luck.
Best of luck.
Best of luck.
Congratulations.
Very much.
Congratulations, good luck.
The next item is the petition of Theresa Francis for Bristol Golf Club, 95 Tupelo Street, requests council consideration for a one-day Sunday dancing and entertainment license for May 29th. You have recommendation provided by the town administrator and fire chief to approve, and also a late item recommendation from the chief of police, also recommending approval.
A motion to approve the one-day Sunday dancing and entertainment license for May 29th for Bristol Golf Club.
Seconded.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion?
I just want to make a discussion that on the petition, was it 8 p.m. the applicant was specifying?
Time of event, 8 p.m.
But Chief, I noticed 7 to 11 is the hours that should be appropriated by the recommendation. Is that correct? Correct. So as long as that's part of, and it's in the motion, that those hours are pertaining to that.
So you're suggesting is the applicant here? No. Okay. So you're suggesting that the motion, Tim, would you be willing to amend your motion to?
So moved.
Okay,
Yeah,
and that motion amendment is from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m.
Yeah.
But it's still per the recommendations, correct?
per the recommendations.
Recommendation.
Which is that recommendation.
Just so that you know, when we record these, unless you tell me otherwise, we do it per the recommendations, so that would incorporate everything that was recommended, conditions, time, all that other stuff. If it's in the recommendation, if you want to change that, then you can do that. But if it's in there and that's what they recommended, that's what we put in. And that's what we advise, when the licensee gets their license, they get the recommendations with all that stuff in it. Okay?
I was just being overcautious because
Yep, no,
the applicant's not here, and if she put on her application 8 p.m. and
Yeah.
she didn't
You wanted
understand,
to see if she-
just want to
you
make sure they
You
understand.
thought she was watching you on TV, so you want to make sure it was clear.
Well, it's
doing the
another
belt and
course of action of
suspenders.
how we make it clear.
Although I will let you know, we are not on live tonight. The Barrington Financial Town Meeting is on live, so we're being
They
recorded.
trump us, huh?
So if
Yeah.
you're wondering if you're more important,
Although I think it
You're
could,
not,
actually
so.
could be on a different, it's on a different channel, isn't it? Yeah. So it's on a different channel, so nobody's finding us anyway.
oh, beautiful. Anything anybody want to say, you're not going to be able to be heard, so it's going to work out well. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the long-awaited request from Explore Bristol and British Motor Car Festival
Yay.
for the Friday night event, request to use Independence Park, and also permission to serve and sell alcoholic beverages on June 10th. You have recommendations provided by the town administrator and fire chief to approve, and I believe there was a similar recommendation provided.
Well, the recommendation, I believe, is for the next one.
Oh, is that the
Isn't it?
other one?
Yeah, the 2B.
Okay.
No, that's 2. No, wait a minute, yeah, 2B.
You are correct.
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
is
yeah, it's the
2B.
next one, yeah.
Chief, is there any objection for F1, which was for the Friday night event on the Independence Park?
No, we recommend they approve it as long as they follow all the guidelines that are set forward. I know that there's ongoing meetings with the director, Mr. Burke, and Sergeant Morano has been attending several meetings. It's my understanding they all understand the conditions set forward with snow fences and everything else, and they're going to comply, or else we'll be reporting back to you.
So can we have a motion and we can have discussion on it?
So
Make
moved.
a motion to approve?
Second for discussion?
Go ahead.
So pertaining to F1, and I know you and I talked about this, Walter, did they draft a diagram for Independence Park? I know we got the diagram for Field C, but were we given a diagram for Independence Park?
Is that the thing that's in your place that looks like this? So it's the whole park is used, and it's basically the whole grass. Am I reading that correctly?
But I thought that our new ordinance was that they would have to be not wandering the park. I thought they had to be in a, like, beer garden area to consume the alcohol.
My understanding is that the consumption of alcohol in the Independence Park is within the ring of the sidewalk, with the tent being on where it's described on the grass closest to the driveway end. That's the way it was last year.
Right, and I don't think there was really a big need to have people walking all around the park with alcohol, kind of sloshing it all. I mean, my opinion, I thought they were going to be more confined under our new ordinance that we talked about, or new policies that we talked about at the last few meetings.
To remind everybody, remind the public, we just, the council did a lot of, actually, council in the town did a lot of work in regards to a new alcohol policy, or the allowing alcohol on town property when the petition is done correctly in application. There's insurance requirements. There's a sign-off from the chief of police requiring X amount of officers depending on the size of it. So we spent a lot of time to go through this to make sure that that everyone was handled evenly, consistently, and that we were not in a difficult place. That's a nice way to put it. So, and I do agree, Walter, that last year that was the way it was. Does our new policy kind of fit in this large area? Because I do see a concern there. That's a pretty big area.
I think we should look to the chief, because I know we're going to get into the next agenda item, and we're going to talk about that field too with the fencing, so.
That's correct. The other one, without a doubt, is going to be a snow fence enclosing everything. As you know, this is a little bit designed, the architect layout's a little unique. If it was a normal event, I think you'd be able to control that a lot easier with, like Mary says, a closed-in garden area for the alcohol. I will tell you that there were no major issues last year, and it's my understanding that they go along where the vehicles are. I think the pro and con of when they have a gated area is they go there, they take the drink, and down they go. Sometimes they consume more. Then if they take one and walk around the vehicles, and off you go. I can tell you that we monitored it. It was controlled very well. I think the staff that was assigned there worked exceptional. We gave them some good tips, but I leave it up to you. I mean, unfortunately, the layout and the architect structure of this park is designed a little different, and the venue that's coming here is a little different than the average venue, whether it's Mount Carmel, whether it's St. Elizabeth's, whether it's the venue down at the town beach. This is definitely a different one. Whatever you decide, I will make sure that it's followed. I have no problem with it.
Well, I think that's the important thing, that those who imbibe don't wander off too much, certainly not on the sidewalk, and hopefully not too far away from where they're served. And I think that any organization that is granted this privilege needs to recognize that they're a little on trial to prove that they are responsible for requesting again another year.
Halsey, I think that's well put. This is the first applicant for this new policy. There's a lot of weight on them to show success with this, because failure will also make us review that policy and potentially change it. So we are looking for success on this.
Well, I just want to, I don't know if this is the most recent version that we adopted. This is what I had in the drawer, and as you know, we went through various iterations of this. But it says very, very clearly, all alcohol beverages must be consumed indoors or in a defined, secure, outdoor or tented area, such as a beer garden. It says it right there on my version of, I can't really give you the page number because there's a lot of pages that start at 1 in different sections.
That's the way it reads.
That's the way it reads, right? So, I mean, that's what I thought we were operating under. So, I mean, I'm glad you clarified that, because that would change the way I would view this applicant.
If you decide to do that, we'll tell them that they have to have an enclosed area, and that's where the alcohol will be served. I'm only putting it to you because of how it was unloaded last year. Mr. Ershoff makes a valid point. I can tell you that the coordinator for that event will be spoken to by the supervisor on site, which will be a sergeant or lieutenant, to educate him as he or she, whoever's delivering the alcohol to these people, that they're to tell them right there and then where they're not to go and where they shouldn't be. And I assure you, we're going to have officers there. The second someone crosses that line, We're going to have a good conversation with them. It'll be documented. The information will be forwarded to you, and next year you make a decision, if the venue's here, on how you want to do it. Totally up to you. I can live with whatever you decide.
Thank you.
I'm open to the beer garden. I mean, if we're going to, this is the new ordinance, I think we should keep everybody to the same standards, you know, and, well, I think they should have it, so it's a designated area where we know that they can safely enjoy themselves, and it's controlled.
So you made the motion to approve.
Approve.
So that motion, would that include that large area that we're speaking of, or just the area around the tent?
Just around the area where they're serving the beer and wine, they would have to have its designated sort of area where they're drinking. But I mean, is there anybody here from the British Carve?
Yes.
There is. Does anyone want to speak on that on behalf?
Can we?
I mean, they could set up another, they could set up,
Okay.
I'd ask that if you want to, please, and we'd like you to speak, if you want to come up to the microphone, if you would.
because there's nothing, I would think that they wouldn't just go to that little tent to serve. I would think they would put up another area, like, in the park itself.
And if you could state your name for the record.
My name's Michael Gattano. I am the event promoter for the British Motor Car Festival.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, welcome.
Welcome back. Welcome back. Glad
So
to be back.
You've heard the concerns that have been expressed. How would you address them?
I'm sorry?
You've heard the concerns that have been expressed. Our new policy requires that it's in a defined area, and this is a large area. It's the whole park.
We do one in Vermont. We've done it for the last 26 years, and we do keep it in a confined area there. The chief makes a very valid point. People who are drinking that are in a confined area could possibly consume at a higher rate of speed than they would if they're able to walk in the area. The areas that we're talking about are confined by snow fencing, the next area you're talking about. The park is a little bit more challenging. I believe, I understand where you're coming from, and I'm sure you don't want people taking drinks and walking to the other end of town on the main street.
Right.
And I think these people are going to be interested in staying near their cars for the most part to make sure that no damage is done to their cars or that people aren't sitting in their cars. So it's possible that they probably would like to have that drink and yet be close to their car at the same time, which would be a little bit more challenging if you had a very confined area for them to stay in. In 26 years of doing the British invasion, we've never ever had an insurance claim or a problem or anything. Most of these people are in their 50s and 60s. They have collector cars. They drive very responsibly. I can tell you, as a reference, we served 105 lunches at Zaconnet Vineyard last year with an open wine with lunch policy. If one might envision what that bar bill would be, I thought it would be $800 to $1,000. It was $280. Not even one drink per person. These people are very responsible. I don't see that there would be a problem. From my part, we certainly will work with whatever guidelines are provided to us to comply and make sure it works.
But this is beyond the participants. Like, you're talking about the participants who are bringing their cars. The alcohol is going to be served to everyone, right? You're going to be able to purchase it, aren't they? Anybody who comes to the event.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
I think it's more about everybody else, not necessarily about the car owners. It's, if you have hundreds or thousands of people who come down there.
Our experience last year wasn't that we had that larger crowd. Most of the people, I believe, in the park were people with their cars. But your point's valid. We certainly don't have any way of knowing who's going to be there. The audience, I thought, and the community was very responsible last year. There really were no problems. Everyone had a good time. Certainly it will work either way. I'm sure that if you have, it depends on the size of the area. If you have a small, confined area, it makes it challenging for people to enjoy. Vermont, I might add, has a very strange rule. Downtown, when we have a street party on Friday night, they do have a beer garden, but if you go into the grocery store and buy a beer, you can open it and walk down the street with it. I don't understand that one.
Because the rest of your event in Vermont, is that a public property or a private property?
It's on town property. It's
The
a
whole
special
event?
events field. But very much like what we're doing here, on Friday night downtown, a special group of merchants get together and sponsor basically a street party. The British invasion brings in about $2 million on a weekend in Stowe, Vermont. Lodging, food, and gasoline. It's a larger event. We draw about 650 cars. It took a while to get it to that level, But, again, no problems, everything's been fine. But there are police officers on the street. If there was a problem, it would probably be addressed very, very quickly, and I've never seen a problem.
Well, I'd just like to say that I hope you realize that we welcome your event with great enthusiasm. It's a wonderful
Thank you.
thing for the town as well as for your organization, and we appreciate your care and thoroughness in conforming to our rules, and with that good spirit and our police department and the council, I'm sure it'll all work well.
Yeah.
I would like to just add that 50%, I'd say at least, of the people who came last year were first-time visitors to the town of Bristol. The feedback we got was amazing. People loved the town. They found the people incredibly friendly. I got rave reviews on the friendliness of the police department. People were very, very excited to be here and coming back again this year. So it speaks very highly of the people in the town and the community. People just love the town. I already have my wife saying, I'd like to move to Bristol.
Well,
We've done our job, thank you.
You all did choose the best town in Rhode Island, and
Yeah.
I'm glad that the event has so far proven that, and we hope it'll prove it even more this year.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman, my concern is this, is we took a lot of time on this topic to craft this policy to where we're at. So you're a victim of circumstance of being the first applicant. So when we get a draft plan, that's what this council, I believe my colleagues, expects. We expect an application, and we went over format. We would like the proof, but I'll ask the clerk now. I would imagine that these two vendors provided the town with the liquor liability and their license to serve. So it is on record with this town hall that we do have that, because that's the protocol attached with this alcohol policy in place.
That would be something we would request from them if the council
Yes.
approved.
So I'm setting up the criteria so each applicant, this will be like a commercial going forward too, so it's a learning curve for everybody.
Let me
So
speak-
when we have all the information, it's simplified for this council, so it's not so rigorous of all these questions. Like, I would probably have a question, I see where the fence is, where's the entrance, how many exits, will they be staffed, so people, even though you might post a sign, no alcohol, past this point, or it's known by our town code, which we have a great police department to enforce it. Sometimes it's good if it's conveyed to the council that, well, here's the entrance, here's the exit, we'll have someone there, knowing, for extra security on behalf of the detail. In the previous letter, I didn't get a chance because we just got it tonight, but you do have details for Independence Park already in place because of the recommendation. So these are all the criteria, I think, myself and my colleagues in the administration and the departments are concerned with this new policy. As long as all the targets are qualified and met, that's the important thing, I feel, when we're hearing these cases. Because at the end of the day, we want you to succeed with your event. We want the people to enjoy themselves, and we want the town to flourish and not be liable at the end of the day either. But see how you convey to us that there's going to be cause. So to us, we might think that there's going to be all people just drinking in this large, vast area. But you're going to have all antique cars, there's going to be a band playing, so there's a mixture of a lot that's going to take up the park itself, intertwined with the pedestrians and the residents. To Councilwoman Perella's clarification of the ordinance of a beer garden, I think, again, we talk case by case, depending with this park versus other parks, that such may have playgrounds, or something. That's a concern we talked about last meeting. So I guess it's in the eyes of the beholder of when you say a beer garden, how big of a beer garden we're talking about.
Well, I'm just reading the thing. I wasn't even a big fan of the policy, so, I'm just reading what was on here.
So how about if I do
I just
this?
vote no.
How about if we do this?
That's the
It
easy way.
sounds as though the only question that we have is the size of the area that is allowed to consume alcohol. That really is the crux of it. So we want to make sure that there's a fence around it. We've got an answer of yes, there is a fence around the area in which there would be any kind of alcohol consumption, correct?
No.
Again,
Just the
I'm not
service.
on the
It's not
Independence
his
Park
event.
side, but
It's
that
not
is
his
Explore
event.
Bristol. They'll have a lot of volunteers there to certainly manage the field activities. I'm not aware that they're snow fencing that whole entire field in. It wasn't snow fenced in last year, so people could walk to the sidewalk where their cars were and things like that. But most of the people that I saw consuming what few there were over at the area that was serving the beverages. I
Because
didn't
the cars
see
are
one
not-
person in the street carrying a drink.
The cars are on the street parked, or are they on the park itself parked?
I'm
Are
sorry.
are the cars on the street, or are they going to be on the grass?
There's
They-
both. In reality,
Okay.
the answer is both. What we're going to do is there's a cocktail reception at the Lobster Pot for the concourse cars. We're probably going to send 3 to 5 of those down. Our chief judge will be there to position them on the lawn. The rest of the cars will come down from Colt State Park, 50 at a time. There's a reserve parking for 100 cars downtown. I don't know exactly where those spots are, but the police will direct them to their parking areas, and then they'll park their cars and they'll go over and enjoy the music and the festivities,
It's going to be great.
which is what they basically did last year.
Walter wants to share with
So,
something.
so
Okay.
to answer the question, the current plan is that Independence Park is not fenced in. It's just a tent to serve beer and wine. However, as the chief has said, and I fully agree, if the council decides that there needs to be a fenced-in area, we're fine with that, and the chief and I will make sure that it is the size to contain, but not squeeze out customers.
So for myself, that's exactly my concern. So if you can address that and do that,
Yes.
and I personally am okay with a greater size than just around the tent,
Okay.
but if I want, for myself,
Yep.
that any place that there's alcohol being consumed, that is a well-controlled area. So if it's decided that it's half that size or three-quarters, I don't particularly mind as long as it's cordoned off.
Okay.
That's myself.
Now, as relates to the town beach, the show field is fenced in.
Why don't we stop, if I may, Walter, because I want to do F1 first,
Oh, okay.
and we'll get to that, just so we can keep things nice and clear. on
Mr.
this.
Chairman, if I may.
Yes.
Ms. Turnbull, that submitted the application on behalf of Explore Bristol, she told me she couldn't be here, but I believe her husband is here to speak on her behalf, and I think he made an attempt. So
Mr.
it
Turnbull.
might be a good idea to hear from the applicant.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Welcome.
I'm not too sure what I'm supposed to be telling you.
That's all right, either are we, it's okay.
I kind of got thrown into the breach. I know I was active in the affair last year and know quite well how the operation ran. And surprisingly, there wasn't really that much drinking. It was what I would say very limited. We don't know what to expect this year. It could be.
Okay.
And we're perfectly willing to abide by whatever decisions they make. If they want to make a bullpen, people can come in.
So, Mr. Turnbull, you have no objection to a cordoned-off area, if appropriately sized?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No.
All right. What other objections does the council have?
I just had the concerns of the entrance, the exits, and also when you look at this, you have the beer and wine service, and you're showing us the fence.
I didn't see that.
I would imagine the fence would go outside of the beer and wine service.
To encapsulate
To
it.
encapsulate it, just because it's a tent, you're doing all the fencing. So those are just my concerns, just to address all the targets that need to be addressed to make the event successful.
Is everybody okay with that? Does anybody have an objection to that?
I'm not really sure. What do you think?
Chief?
I would just like some clarification on exactly
Thank you.
where you want to cordon this off. I don't want this coming back and then, you meant this and we did something totally different. So I know that we don't have dimensions in front of us or anything, but I just want some specifics on what you want to be cordoned off and where the alcohol will be served, and I guarantee you that that will take place. But I'm going to need a little bit of help here, whether it's with Walter or whoever decides on what the dimensions are and how far we're going to go with this.
Well, I don't know that we can determine that here, but there's not really, I don't know if there's another meeting, we don't need to wait to that. I mean, maybe the chairman and Walter and you can sit down and figure that out with the committee, and determine what that is.
I'm fine
And I
with that.
think that would,
And I would say that for the sake of the event, you can't make it too small because
No.
you don't want to have them just jammed in against the bar. So
No, and I don't hear that from
I
anyone.
think you make it kind of around the whole thing, but there's a little elbow room, but it's clear that people are not to stray way off.
Okay,
I
so,
mean, I would think that they would have, like, I know it's expensive, so I'm not necessarily suggesting this, but my vision of this, when we went through that other ordinance, which just passed like about the last meeting maybe, would be that, you'd have like a nice big tent with a bunch of like tables or whatever there, and that's where you would have people would be consuming the alcohol rather than walking all around. Not necessarily to confine it to an area, but, like one of the larger tents that might be out there. But I know that's an expensive proposition. I mean, so I'm not saying that but that's the kind of thing, not necessarily that there's like did somebody just say the word bullpen? Bullpen?
Yeah,
Who said that?
somebody said.
Yeah. I wasn't really thinking of a bullpen, whatever that might mean to different people.
I think to the question of the tent and a lodge tent would probably cover most of this park. So we're back to square one of a fencing situation.
I think it should be maybe circular around the bar area so that people have a little elbow room. But the main thing is that it'll be clear that
Relocate the bar area. They could relocate.
we have a purpose, and that I think it'll then be followed, as long as it's not jamming them in too tight.
Mr.
if you want to speak, you need to come up to the mic, please, so everybody can hear you. What I was going to say was that the objection from the council was a cordoned-off area. So we can discuss how large that cordoned-off area is. Also, another concern was expressed about entrances and exits clearly marked. So this council is going to make sure, and I will work with the chief and Walter and the applicant. Did I skip anybody? No? The administrator? That we'll all work together to make sure that this area is cordoned off, and we won't designate a specific area at this moment. We'll figure it out that it's appropriate for the event, and still address the concerns that have been expressed by this council. Is everybody okay with that?
I'm
I think that's
perfectly
very
fine with that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to approve this.
I thought Mike wanted to speak.
Yep.
Go ahead. Yeah,
Can I make a comment, please?
of course.
Mike Burns, Metacom Avenue.
Good to see you here, Mike.
Yes.
Glad to see you.
Yeah,
Good to be
Yeah.
inside the
You're
grass.
okay.
Last year, when we did this the first time, and I haven't read the town council's policy on, that they've just established, so I can't speak to that specifically. But last year, we had an arrangement where we served beer and wine out of a tent, a small tent, 20 by 40. And that was confined to the area of the park, sort of the circle. If you look on a map, there's that big circle there. So that people actually took their beer and wine and walked around and looked at the cars. Fencing Independence Park is a major problem. And fencing a small area defeats the purpose of having a glass of beer and a glass of wine and walking around and looking at the cars. So I'm not sure how to interpret the ordinance that has been passed in this way. I don't know if police tape would be fencing around the area. The question of what is a fence? And how do we fence? If we're going to put snow fence around that area, two things I would say. It's extremely costly, labor and expense-wise, and it's unsightly for the type of event that's being hosted
I
there.
agree with that.
I agree.
Well, it doesn't say fencing in here, it just says indoors or in a defined, secure outdoor or tented area, is what it says.
I'm sorry, Mary Ann.
Oh, it says consumed indoors or in a defined, secure outdoor or tented area, such as a beer garden. That's the wording of that line.
Yeah.
I mean, no one knows exactly how it would be interpreted. I guess we all had a different vision of what that might be.
And honestly, I think that's a good thing, and the reason why is that we want some flexibility with this. It's appropriate to have fencing in some areas, in other areas it may not be. So, and that was kind of more the point, was working with the chief, Walter, and the applicants, plural. We'll make sure that it's appropriate, that the chief is happy with it, that his officers can do what they need to do in a clear area. And, by the same token, that participants can enjoy themselves and understand where they can and can't be with wine or beer.
Okay.
So,
All right.
yeah. So,
Any questions of me? Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make a suggestion?
could you state your name for the record, please?
Pete Hewitt, Wendy Drive.
Thank you.
It just seems to me, as a person who, if I'm going to a car show, or if I'm going down to Independence Park to look at the cars, which is why we want to get the public in, and there's going to be a tent 20 by 40 to serve beer and wine, we should maybe have a sign posted or people to brief people who drink. The drinking area is confined to the park. You're not allowed to go out on Thames Street. You're not allowed to cross the street over to Redlison's or any place else with a beer or wine in your hand. You're limited to Independence Park. That would be the confines, I would think, of the beer and alcohol consumption. If you cut it down smaller than that, I'm not quite sure how you impart to the public where those limitations are. And if you fence it either by caution tape or by storm fencing, the bullpen approach, I think it does defeat the purpose, because people are driving from all over to bring their cars down here to enjoy the street rally, Independence Park. They have their cars parked there. They want to stand by their car and talk to people who come to their car to want to get information about the car. And if you limit the guy who owns the Triumph or the Rolls Royce, that he goes and gets a beer or a glass of wine, or his wife does, and she's limited to stand within 30 feet or 40 feet of where she bought the wine, she can't get back to her car. So it seems to defeat the purpose for me.
I guess the challenge, Pete, on the opposite side of that is that I agree with the line that you use, but it's an imaginary one, and there's no possible way that an applicant could afford the amount of officers that it would require to keep people cordoned in that area without fencing. So it's kind of a catch-22 on both sides. I agree with your point, but I don't think you could have that many people watching, officers watching that, and obviously I defer to the chief on that, but I mean, it's going to take more than what was originally talked about if it's not cordoned off in some sense or another.
I would say this, like, even if you use the sidewalk, because a sidewalk, it's a perimeter, it makes a natural perimeter around there. So that's what this group might decide upon. The thing is, if the cars are going to be parked down the street, you're still going, and they're not all going to be able to be on the angled parking right in front, maybe, then people are still going to have to walk up and down the street if the theory is that they could go see the cars while they're having their alcohol. So they'd have to either stay on the grass area, and they wouldn't be permitted to go onto the street.
Right. And our ordinance and our policy doesn't allow.
Right?
Yeah. Well, I think limiting it to the grass and the perimeter of Independence Park on the grass is adequate, it's reasonable, it's fair, and make the sidewalks and/or the street off limits. And you promote that, you tell the people that, and I don't expect the chief to have out, his entire force up there to enforce it, but you will have volunteers, you will have people associated with and I know if I'm down there parking cars or involved, and I see somebody, on the sidewalk, I have no objection to walking up and saying, excuse me, but you're not allowed out here, you're back on the grass. I think there's an element of trust and responsible, mature people running a show who take value in the show do not want to get cross-threaded with the interests and the needs of the city.
Well, I don't think anybody is thinking that necessarily. I mean, I think you're right, people do. I think because, for whatever reason, I think some of it had to do with the car show last year, and not that there was a problem, but sort of the last-minute nature of the permit. I mean, the council decided to go down this road for a policy. Now, I had some issues with that policy, if you followed this whole chain, in terms of drinking in the park, and it goes more to the next one than this one, actually. But, I just find it ironic, and, council can decide, everybody can decide what they're going to do with themselves, but you have a policy that's like maybe not even a month old, and now we're going to just, so maybe it's two things. It's either that the policy's not clear, or we're just already going to potentially say, well, it doesn't really matter because we're going to pick and choose and we like this event, So, I mean, I think the point of it was, if you're going to have a park, whatever the park may be, then you know, like, this is kind of like a private, not a private, it's a public event, but it's like an event at the whole park, as opposed to the same rules that apply for, say, your event on the next day, where you're in a park, but there's lots of other things going on in that park, and now you're trying to take a section. I mean, I don't think people want to see a lot of private events going on in a public park on any given weekend, where all these sections are cordoned off because they want to serve alcohol. I mean, that was one of the concerns that I had with that. So, I mean, I think it's just a sort of I just think it's sort of an interesting dilemma, because it's the first one that's come up under this. But, I mean, I certainly think...
It's time to set precedents.
That's right. And I certainly...
The grassy area.
And I certainly think that you have no problem, that you would definitely keep order down there.
Where's the band going to be?
Probably right near the beer tent was where it was last year. There was 2 tents there, and then there was the band was in this location on the far left side toward Guido's, as I recall. I don't have the layout, because again, I'm not doing the park part, but that's where it was last year. I'd assume it'd be similar, and people were sitting on the grass in front of the band, watching the band, that sort of thing. A suggestion that you might consider is to put some signs on the sidewalk, maybe some freestanding signs that just said no alcoholic beverages beyond this point, and try to keep it confined. I do agree that if you try to fence the whole park off, it would be unsightly. And if you create a really small, tiny area, then, you know, people are going to really be not very happy and very uncomfortable with that because of the reasons we've talked. They want to interface with their friends, the things that are going on, and be somewhat near their cars. So, you know, I guess if I had a preference, it would be to give them as much freedom as you can, but yet still keep them in an area and let them know that there is a limit and you shouldn't go beyond this point, and a sign that says no alcoholic beverages beyond this point in a couple of locations might accomplish what you're hoping to do.
And I know some organizations and that they have very specific colored cups. So, you know, it's very easy to monitor people that are walking around looking at the cars, and, you know, I mean, I'm for this, but long and the short of it, it's very easy to monitor because they're walking around and they have either a red or blue cup, and, you know, you can see that straying off in the distance, but again, I mean, we'll take case-by-case basis, you know. And I'm sure Walter Burke and the chief and chairman are going to work something out nicely.
I think your suggestion is very practical. You know, one advantage we have is this park borders the water, so we don't have to worry much about the water side. Nobody's going to go off there. And I think that's the important thing, is to mark the entrance to the sidewalk and make sure that nobody goes that way. But it would be nice if the location of the cars could be permissible for the alcohol, it seems to me.
So what we're going to do is we have a motion and a second, and that motion and second was kind of amended, so it would be referred to myself, the chief, Walter Burke, and the administrator to work with the applicants, plural, to come up with an area that's cordoned off, that's appropriate for what's being suggested, and everyone seemed okay with that. And I don't think we can decide this evening, unless someone disagrees, how large or small it is, but we can work with the already stated group to make sure that that is done correctly. And then we'll report back on its success, and hopefully there's a lot of people there that get to enjoy it and also share in its success. Chief.
Well, I'm sure you'll all do it in a very good way, and it'll work out fine.
Yeah. And I'd be willing to share with you, I have an after-action report, as you know, to almost every event that takes place. It's a 4-page memo from the supervisor with 21 photos attached to it, and I think it'll clarify some of the questions and concerns that Mrs. Perella has, Councilwoman Perella, and it shows where the alcohol is being consumed, the patrons that were there. We also assigned the volunteers vests and lights from the police department. It just says security, it doesn't have anything to do with police, and explain to them. And as this gentleman said, I think the part that we're just missing there is the servers will be told to express, as they're serving alcohol, to educate the participant that's purchasing the alcohol, you are not to go beyond this spot, whether you decide it's a sidewalk or, you know, a cordoned area. So, okay. I mean, that should save that problem.
Perfect.
Okay.
So everybody's clear on the motion and its second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
So I'm going to look over it just simply because I was going to vote yes, but then there's some questions about it. And then also I read the next when I read it, I understood it, then I read the next one, and I definitely opposed to that one, so to be consistent, I'm just going to vote no.
So we have four
I've
approve,
much
four to
bigger
approve,
problem
one
with
to
the
deny.
second one.
Mr. Chairman, if I could just at this point just remind the applicants that they have to come in with all the requisite insurance information and whatnot, and they really should come in and get a document from us that shows that this was approved and the conditions of approval.
Did you hear that? Okay, thank you.
The next item is from Michael Gaetano, event coordinator of the British Motor Car Festival, request for council consideration to serve alcoholic beverages on town property, the Town Beach Field C, on June 11th and 12th, 2016. You have recommendations from the fire chief, chief of police, and town administrator to approve with certain conditions.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Go ahead.
Can I add one thing to this, sir?
One moment, please. Thank you.
So again, Walter and I had a discussion. Again, the supplemental documentation, I'm not going to repeat myself, of what this council needs when these cases come in front of us. When we went to the site of Field C, Walter explained in the same essence as Independence Park was explained of the snow fence. So he defined the entrance, which would be, guarded with people and where the tickets were going to be sold, and also a restroom entrance and exit where that would be, manned, along with a police detail. We further went down to the northwest corner where the Queen's Court is going to be, where there was going to be a designated beer garden, snow fenced over there. But after conversing with him, he said that's where the beer and wine was going to be sold, and it's going to be the same situation as people can go throughout the field of Field C to look at the cars with beer and wine. My only other suggestion is when we go south, where the trailers were going to be, so we only had 3 sides of the field that were going to be snow fenced, and one side was going to be left undone without snow fence. And my concern is if we're going to make a designated area, I think you need 4 sides to do that, and then have an entrance and exit like I just stated. So again, it's a similar situation where it's a large area that is being proposed. Again, looking at the police recommendation from the sergeant, people going to this small designated area, it was felt that they're going to consume at a faster rate versus just purchasing the alcohol and then perusing the grounds leisurely with a glass of beer and wine and looking at all the cars. So I just wanted to, Mr. Chairman, explain that of what was discussed and a little more insight with your diagram.
So you're suggesting that without being specific to where it would be located, that it is a cordoned-off area, that it's closed, if you will, and not have any open sides?
Only you're going to add the other sides, so there'll be 4 sides to the park, so it's going to be fenced in on all 4 sides,
Well,
along with the trailers.
the side closest to the water, it's on the show field. The side closest to the water is pretty thick, dense woods with briars and impassable really for people. So the woods
Are better than a
makes
snow
that
fence?
park
Okay.
impassable. The other side and actually there will be no soccer going on in the park. So the A, B, and C fields will be empty. The event parking, which is in Colt State Park, has been cleaned out so that people can walk from where the Colt State Park field right into the show field. And there'll be guards at that gate. The only other opening in the field is on the corner closest to the restroom on the other side of the field, widthwise, from the beer garden. And that will be access to the bathroom and the concession stand and the beach. And that also will be guarded. No one will be able to be in that fenced area unless they pay. That's the difference between that site and Independence Park, is Independence Park is free, but the town beach is you have to pay to get in. You wear a bracelet, and you can't get in and out unless you have the bracelet. And the only exit into the park, into the beach, there'll be a guard at that one entrance. So that's that's very secure. And there will be a police detail.
So it's a secure site. It seems to be set up correctly.
This is a wide.
Pardon?
It's a secure site. It's fine. You're fine with this.
And I'm going to be personally there the whole day.
Perfect.
So Walter, you and I spoke about an applicant that had been in front of us about a year ago, and we had said no to that applicant a year ago,
Yeah.
and we said no because it was in the area of the town beach with kids playing and all of that stuff. Why, and I already know the answer, but I'd like to hear it out loud for everyone.
Sure.
Why is this different than that one?
Well, it's the venue. If there's a venue, if somebody somebody asks me to use any field, any park in Bristol, and it's a bunch of 20-year-olds that are going to go out and beat up the woods and roll around in mud and dirt and get dirty and get macho and have a beer and they get a little wild and crazy. Well, I'm going to say no to that. This event is, adults that have $100,000 cars that have great reputation over a long period of time. They're very responsible. If we manage that area in such a way in which we isolate them from the other users of the park, and that really is the beachgoers and the playground and the kids, I think it's appropriate. But there are other venues that I'm going to say absolutely not to, in my opinion.
Okay.
Obviously, they all can come before the town council for
Certainly.
their record.
Of course.
Well, I had two questions. One is that, or points, and that's it. I think it makes it harder once you set the precedent that you're going to allow this sort of thing. I know it's a different population, but we're making assumptions about the other people, right? The other group. We don't know that for fact. Now, that group is what, I think, in all of our minds, they wanted to start drinking at maybe 9, 10 o'clock in the morning. I think the new stuff that we got tonight changes it on this particular application. But, I mean, that's a concern. My view is I don't really feel we should be drinking in the parks. I don't feel that, especially during the whole day and having for 2 days being set up. I believe that the reason we're in this field is because the town will most likely grant the permission for the alcohol, where the state would not, and that's why it's moved from the location last year. But I'm very curious about your location of the beer and wine tent or the sale of it being directly across from the beach area and not somewhere else in that exhibit area. I mean, if you use that. And to me, it looks like, I know you have to pay to get in, but it's just sort of tempting that it's right there. I don't know why it's not sort of further down in the area.
Well, the back end is a pretty lousy area. It's got divots and pits, and if there's a little bit of rain, it fills up with water. It's just not as nice of a site. The new field that we built only a few years ago has been really an amazing field.
No, I'm talking about, like, why is it right there, directly across the street, and not somewhere like along the, place somewhere else?
Even in the middle or something.
Even in the middle, like, why is it directly across the street from the beach area?
It could be in a different location. I just felt for the purpose of.
Are people, can you see it there? Can you see it if you're at the beach? Will families and other people be seeing the beer and wine there?
You'll be able to see it if you look for it. I mean, if you're on the road,
all they would see is probably a cup. I would like to point that, you're looking at confining an area to control, and we are interested in doing the same thing to be able to control admissions. We are putting a snow fence up between us and the beach. People who leave, even to go to the bathroom, are going to either have their credentials on, they're going to have their hand stamped to exit and come back. So, I mean, it's going to be a controlled environment. The tree line that goes along there is very dense. I can't envision anyone trying to fight their way through the trees to get a beer or to exit the field. Enough so we were comfortable with that as a barrier that we didn't feel the need to put that snow fencing in the area. It's actually much better than the snow fencing.
Oh, I'm not suggesting the snow fencing. I'm not suggesting that you put snow fencing where the tree line is. I'm not suggesting that. I was just curious about the location of the beer and wine tent, that's all. In that particular corner, that's my main thing. Other than I'm not a big fan of having the alcohol being sold for 2 days in the park.
The folks that come to these shows, they're not at all big drinkers.
Right.
But it's, they are adults and they're accustomed to that and Stowe and other shows, and perhaps that's something they look forward to. To be social to some degree, I guess, I don't know. But, it's not a big part of the day. It's just like another beverage. These
So
people care about their cars.
We've got a motion and a second to approve. Is there any other discussion in regards to this?
Well, there is one point, and the point is that this application covers the 11th and 12th, and it needs to be amended to include the 10th, because the intent is to organize not to the public, but the car show entrance, come for a reception that is controlled by Zach Rivers, who has a Class P license. He's our provider at the field, and getting them to the field for the reception is also part of getting them lined up in an organized fashion to come downtown on Friday night. So that gets them to come to the park for our reception. They pick up their registration packages. So we'd like to be able to provide them with beverages while they're there on Friday afternoon. It's an hour-and-a-half time frame.
3:30 to 5, right?
Pardon me?
3:30 to 5?
That's correct.
Well, it just so happens, by the recommendation of our police chief, he included those hours, so that's what would be recorded in
Okay, I'm
the
looking
motion.
at the agenda.
But that's also just the participants, not the public.
Thank you for that clarity. Walter just said that that's just for the participants, so.
So we should be okay? Great.
So we have a motion and a second to approve with all of the recommendations of all the departments, including the fire department and police department. Did I skip anything? And, excuse me, with the recreation department? I apologize. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I am opposed.
So we have 4 in favor, 1 opposed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think you have.
Mr. Chairman.
That's just- yeah.
Is this in regards to this?
He was there.
Oh, he was. I'm sorry, I didn't see you. Yes, you can. Yes, of course.
Yes, my name's Steve Dion. I'm a property owner on Thames Street, SS Dion Restaurant. And I received a notice yesterday that the street will be closed on the 10th.
Just so we're clear, this was the F2 was the Cold State Park?
Cold State.
And not Thames
Yes,
Street?
Before we leave the whole subject of the classic car show.
Yes. All right, go ahead, please.
Okay. Well, I received notice that the street would be closed again this year. And I just want the council to be aware of the fact of the negative impact on the restaurants on the north end of Thames Street when you close the street. It's fine for walk-up restaurants like the ice cream shop, but for restaurants that take reservations, it's when people call for a reservation, you have an obligation to tell them that the street is closed. And when you tell them the street is closed, they say, never mind. So last year, we experienced a 2/3 reduction in our volume, our business volume.
Would you remind me of which restaurant?
This is SSD on Thames Street.
Thank you.
I experienced a 2/3 reduction in my business for that night, and I'm sure Red Lifson's and the other reservation-type restaurants experienced the same thing. And I would ask the council to please consider that it's just, don't think of us as just restaurant owners, but also think of the 20, 25 servers, busboys, waiters, everybody else, who basically it's a lost night for them. I have no objection to this car show. It's a really nice, nice event. Is there a way that you could make the street one-way north? Is that possible? Is that possible?
Well,
I beg you to consider that.
My question is, the information furbished to this council was about alcohol use on Independence Park. In no literature whatsoever did I see a road closure part of this event.
I received a letter from the town, signed by the town administrator 2 days ago.
I would think that it would be, and I know
I
you're in
thought
a
it was
unique, a
closed.
little bit of a unique position because you're pretty far, north, and you have your own parking lot right there. So, I mean, I could see people easily coming in and out to your restaurant, and being able to park and being able to tell whoever's at the road closure that I'm going to SSD on and go right ahead, but I'm not sure about the other restaurant owners.
Mary, we tried that last year, and
Yeah.
that failed dismally.
It did?
Yes.
I mean, to make you a good point, and the other thing that was in our packet tonight is is Thursday the 9th, is the high school graduation, so I'm just saying that that's probably a busy weekend for restaurants in town, whether it's Thursday night, Friday night they go out, whatever the case may be. I think that we should, this is supposed to be supporting business,
Yes, it is.
and that's what we get all the time, and hopefully some of these people will also go out to dinner, but if you're losing two-thirds of your restaurant business on a Friday night, that is not good for you or anybody else in that situation.
No.
So we have to figure out how to solve that, I think.
Right. Is there a possibility of having it one way, so you can allow that traffic to come through?
Well, there's 2 points to that, okay? I'm very surprised that you're telling the customers that the street is closed, because I'm reading the police reports from last year, and it's very clear that if someone came to the police officer and said, I have a reservation in any of the restaurants, they were allowed to come through.
Yes, Mayor, but last year, when we went through that, and at 7 o'clock at night, I went out and counted the cars in my parking lot. There were 8 cars. And that's not letting the people through, okay? That's...
Well, but if you're telling people prior to that, okay, they call for a reservation, you tell them the street is closed, I can see how you're discouraging people from coming. But if you tell them as you approach the police officer, please let them know that you have a reservation, I'm not so sure, I don't see what the problem is.
It didn't work.
Well, not everybody might have a reservation. They might decide to go at the last minute, too.
Right.
I think it's a perception thing, that if they see a
right.
police
The
officer
road's
at
not gonna go down.
the Fork of Hope in Thames Street, they're going to think, well, there's something going on, I'm going to go to a different restaurant.
Right.
It's just perception.
Exactly, yes.
So can we allow for one-way, or at least explore that option, or is that?
That is up to the event coordinators. I'm not quite sure. My understanding is that they need the street to park
And
the
I certainly
vehicles.
understand what your point is, but it's, and I absolutely got a really clear point there, but it's absolutely up to us. So if we're going to hurt business owners, we're not going to hurt business owners. It's just not going to happen. So, and to be clear, the administrator and the chief also made a good point, is that they're going to allow that traffic to come down. So how can we work together to make sure that you can get, and not just you, but obviously all the restaurant owners in any business down there, to get access to your property on that evening, but yet still have this function exist? And to Councilman Stewart's point, I didn't see that there was a road closure in any of these applications, and you can correct me if I'm wrong on that one. So
No, I didn't either.
so we didn't vote to close the road, to be honest. So that wasn't part of it. But that doesn't mean that that's not what, that is in fact what happened last year. But how about if we do this? Because we've already voted on this and it's already passed. So we've already taken action on this item. But that doesn't mean that we can't be sympathetic to the issues that you've already expressed. Why don't we do this?
We didn't take action on it because we didn't take any action to close the road. We just talked about alcohol on the park.
We took that action, is what I'm
right,
saying. But we didn't close the road, to be very clear. So we'll work out a way that access will be access to your property and other business owners' property, whether it's a restaurant or otherwise, and yet still have this event.
Oh, that'd be great. Now,
Apparently, we have magic wands. I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure it out.
how do I
So-
follow up on that?
Well, I'd ask that you work through the administrator's office, and he will and then share with us, and obviously in the police chief, too. And-
Maybe you could discuss that to be clear about what it is for our end when you meet on the park itself.
Councilman Perella brings up that we have a meeting to talk about where that area will be cordoned off. That'll be part of that discussion.
Okay, very good.
Thank you. I'm
Thanks
glad
for your
that
time.
you-
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a
Thank
good
you for
night.
addressing us.
Yeah.
Okay, the next item is the petition of Nancy Dobie of 38 Sullivan Lane. She would like the opportunity to present the council with the annual plaque.
Nancy, just tell me when to hold it up, okay? All right. Grab that shirt.
Hello, I'm Nancy Dobie, 38 Sullivan Lane, and we have our shirts on fine display, so they're...
Are we going to, look at that shirt?
There you go. Look at our T-shirts.
Pretty.
Here, I'll hold the back
And
so you
look
can
at
see
the
the
back,
sponsors.
too. And if you turn around and see the back of our T-shirts, you'll see all the wonderful sponsors who have supported us throughout our 9 years. Can you believe it? Time goes by so fast.
Very nice.
And thank you all for your support. With our Senior Games program on the 11th, that's going to be a busy weekend here in town. We have a pickleball round-robin tournament up at the Bristol Recreation Center, and for the town council members, we have the schedule printed, and I'll have that posted, and it'll be in the paper as well. And on September 24th, we're going to have a 1 to 1.5 mile walk or run or jog route through the park and down to the beach, and we'll loop it around the baseball fields so we can all feel young again, and we'll set up something where we are imaginarily up to bat, tag first base, run around, and just bring back happy memories. So we'll work that out with Walter, which will be a fun time. The William J. McCarthy Swim will be coming up on the Saturday, August 6th, which is VJ Day weekend, and we're happy that we were able to lock it into that date. And I know our dear friend Bill McCarthy will be looking down over us and watching us swim. So with that, I would like to present two of our councilmen who participated in our swim last year, and I have something very special. So I would like them to come up, or I'll bring them up.
Okay, you can bring them up.
And these,
Oh, wow. Wow.
One is Tim, and who's the other? Nathan?
It is not me. I can tell you it is not. If you were thinking it was me,
these are
I
very
was drinking a lot of
special.
salt water that day.
These are very special to me
go.
because back in 1992 and in 1991, these were presented to me for swimming with Bill McCarthy and the others in the VJ Day Swim. So they come from Walter to me, and now they're going to our special swimmers. Tim, I'd like you to receive for a half-mile swim, and for Eddie, he was in the relay team.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you, thank you.
Halsey, Mary, and I will have to be consigned to our T-shirts, so.
I wasn't able to go last year. That was cool. I didn't know you were going to.
Thank you, Nancy, for not mentioning that you called a rescue for me, when I was swimming. So,
And I also have
So Ed, I guess we're signed up for this year. This is, we're in.
One more thing.
And for our Bristol Town Recreation Department, I'd like to present to our Special Director, Walter, for the 2016 event that we will be hosting at the Quinta Gamelin Community Center, and we will have it posted in the paper. So, isn't he cute?
Yeah.
Thank you, Nancy.
And for
Oh, my goodness.
I know. Bag of tricks there.
And for our lovely town of Bristol, I have this plaque which holds its special place as you come in just to the left of Tony's office. So,
All right. Thanks.
Can I assume the bag is empty? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thanks,
Nancy. It's always a
Nancy.
pleasure seeing you.
That was great.
Can we have a motion to receive and file?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is a petition of Matthew Shaw, 16 Justin Street, request council consideration to petition the State Traffic Commission for a traffic light at Jameson Drive and at Metacom Avenue.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the council. It's a tough act to follow, but
Yeah,
I'm going to try.
I don't know if you're handing out anything.
Any awards?
Plaques, T-shirts?
Welcome.
Council, I am back before you for a request to petition the State Traffic Commission for placement of a traffic light at Jameson and 136. I set this down by way of correspondence in a packet of information dated May 6th, so I hope you guys have that before you. By way of some background, I was last here on April 25, 2015 with the same request. The council voted unanimously to refer this for further study. I waited, not hearing. I followed up with the town administrator and police chief back in January of this year. Not hearing anything in response to that, I placed this matter down on the agenda for discussion and entertainment tonight. I can tell you that the issues giving rise to my initial request back in April of last year have not gone away and will not go away without further intervention. This intersection is a hazard, first and foremost, to pedestrians. Number one, there is a RIPTA bus stop located at this intersection. And the hazards and the dangers of that intersection make it almost impossible for riders, potential or otherwise, to use that bus stop. I find it ironic that, where Metacom is so congested, we need more public transportation, yet here we've got a bus stop that people can't access, and certainly that would help reduce congestion on Metacom Avenue. That route is important. It's the only route that serves 136, and it only operates during the morning and evening rush. In the wintertime, it's dark. You can barely cross the street to get to that bus stop heading into Providence. After I petitioned back in April 2015, I reached out to RIPTA, spoke to Amy Petine. She sent she's with the RIPTA planning. She sent a bus stop survey crew out there. They agree. The intersection is dangerous. Second, the location of this intersection alone makes it hazardous. This is the first intersection you approach from the north into Bristol. You've got 4 lanes of traffic merging down to 2. You've got a heavy commercial district right to the north. There's just a need for a light. There's a need for some sort of traffic control device at this intersection. The danger that this intersection poses is a product of its location. And I think also the characteristics of the neighborhood. This neighborhood, which serves roughly 75 or so, give or take, residents, is serviced only through Jameson Drive. If something were to happen, there's a lot of traffic on that road, it's a dangerous intersection. If something were to happen to that intersection and it were to close it down, there's no way in or out of that neighborhood. So I think location, 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 the neighborhood is cut off. There's definitely need for a light. And with that, I submit this request again. I ask the town council take this under consideration again. I have contacted representatives, as you've seen, the state senator as well. Senator Failog reached out to me back in April when this was initially set down. And there's an interest. So I would seek this council's recommendation or petition to the State Traffic Commission for a placement of a light at this intersection.
Matthew, I'm in support of your petition.
Thank you.
I just wanted to know, where do we stand as far as the status goes in this?
So it's never gone to the Traffic Commission, is that right?
Well, let's find out.
We don't know.
Let's find out.
Seems you might have the answer, so.
No, I don't have all the answers, and that's probably part of the problem. After I sent this down in April 2015, I diligently, up to a point, checked the State Traffic Commission agenda. They meet once a month, and not having seen it, after a series of however many months, I just stopped looking. I probably did that up until, I don't know, September, October.
Okay. I'll make it very clear. I'm very familiar with that neighborhood. I lived there for 18 years. Okay? It is a concern. We received the information back in April of 25-15. I believe Lieutenant Burke at that point did contact the Traffic Commission with regards to it. They said they would do a study. As this gentleman said, I guess he reached out to RIPTA. That I don't have any information with regards to that. Exactly where it stands right now, I don't know, but I will get you an answer. I will tell you that there's been a lot of concern with regards to a traffic light. There is really a two-way lane that merges into one coming in on the southbound lane. Northbound, as we know, we only have one lane going into Warren. We'll take a look at it and we'll send the information, but the state DOT has full jurisdiction over that. It's a state road, and I can't tell you they have a flavor to put a traffic light in an area. There are many bus stops, as we all know, throughout Medicom and here on Hope Street that don't have traffic lights. So as far as that being the answer to it, I can't tell you that. As far as this gentleman's saying, one way in, one way out, absolutely. In 1990, when I built my home there on Gregg Drive, at the corner of Gregg and Satcham, there were two entrances. One was from Satcham Road. A short time later, a couple of years later, I don't have the exact date, they petitioned to close off Satcham Road and make it a cul-de-sac. That is where our sign lies now that says entering Bristol. But there are many roads off Medicom Avenue that don't have other ways out. Maybe not to that size, I will tell you that. There was also a question many years ago, from what I was told, when that plat was designed, about possibly having it go through Gregg Drive into Ridgeway. I believe it's Ridgeway that runs where Kentucky Fried Chicken to be into Warren. That also fell through. I don't have control or any knowledge on why and why not that took place.
And I think the Medicom study shows Gregg Drive going possibly to Tupelo.
Yeah.
But having a, I don't want to use landlocked neighborhood, that can't be safe in case of need for evacuation. I would hesitate to contemplate a scenario where a neighborhood that size would be permitted in this day and age with one means of ingress and egress.
So, Chief, you had mentioned that you wanted to do some research on it.
Yeah.
Would a continuation to our next meeting be appropriate time frame?
Why don't you do that, and I will make sure I forward a memo to you, and I would ask this individual, if you could, contact my office, and I will put you in touch with Captain Burke, who's the liaison officer to the DOT, to the Traffic Commission, and he'll bring you right up to speed. He'll let you know exactly who he's been speaking to, where it stands, and what we can do to assist. I'm being honest with you right now. I'm not saying that I would recommend it at this point.
But we want to find out.
I need some good data to explore that and make sure that that's something that we'd all be comfortable with.
Director McBride, you wanted to share something?
If I could, is this mic on? If I could just add a couple of bits of information. A letter petitioning the State Traffic Commission for a signal at that particular intersection would trigger the need for a detailed traffic study at that intersection, and they won't do it in an isolated version. Right now, there's a project that's on the books, a DOT high hazard intersection improvement project that's on the books that will, all this road work that you see going on Medicom Avenue is advanced utilities for that project. It does not include a signal at Jameson. it includes a signal upgrade at all of the existing signalized intersections short of Fatima. To start at Tupelo, down at Gooding, that's pretty much in good shape, not much different going to happen there. Then you've got Chestnut, Inawamsket, and then Bayview. But one of the things to keep in mind is they're going to go to the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices signal warrants, and there's a litany of warrants that they go through to see if it warrants a signal, whether it be accident, the number of accidents within a certain given period of time. That road right now carries in excess of 20,000 vehicles per day on an average annual daily traffic process. So it's a high volume of traffic. It goes from the 2 lanes in Warren, as you know. As you head south, it comes in next down into 1 lane in each direction. As you know, the traffic congestion that occurs with the construction on Medicom Avenue, when they go to 1 lane alternating traffic, is horrendous. But that signal, if they did put one in, it would have to be coordinated with the Fatima Drive signal. It would have to be part of a coordinated signal system because of the close proximity of those signals. So it's not as easy and said and done. But all of these pieces of information would be warranted to be presented to the commission for them to render a decision and then trigger DOT to install a signal at that location. He brings up an incredibly good point of one access egress for that entire neighborhood. Quite frankly, I was quite surprised that that other roadway was cut off, just from an emergency vehicle standpoint. So he brings up a lot of good information, but as the chief mentioned, there are a lot of pieces of information that his liaison would have to work with DOT Traffic Commission, or the State Traffic Commission, to go forward with this. And it is a lengthy process. And since they're doing upgrade to high hazard intersections now, and this wasn't part of it, I'm not sure how it falls into that grand scheme of the plan. But it is a detailed process, and there's a lot that goes into it. And they don't just study that one particular intersection at that location. They'll do a corridor study, and they'll plug it into what they already have for the other intersection upgrades. As you know, when that intersection went in at Fatima Drive, remember the signalized timing and the problems that occurred, the queuing that occurred on a Friday afternoon, and there were all kinds of complaints to DOT on that.
Yeah, it happens on Hope Street
now.
now.
Figured into it. It never went away.
So why don't we do this? With all of that and what the chief shared, and certainly what you, Mr. Shaw, have shared already, why don't we continue this to the June 25th meeting with the purpose of finding out where we are in that process. If we're not in that process, how do we include it in what has already been mentioned in the larger process of Medicom? Is everybody okay with that?
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to continue to the June 25th meeting.
Seconded.
For discussion? We have a motion and a second to continue. Discussion?
If I might add, Mr. Shaw, you make valid points about safety is the concern of crossing the street to the bus stop is the first one of concern? Because that's going north and you have to cross out of Jameson.
To get into
Would that be the first address of safety?
That's number one, yeah.
So I agree with that point.
Pedestrian safety,
yes.
absolutely, absolutely.
So I agree with you. As far as the congestion, this council has been talking about 136 for years now, and we continually to keep working on it, and I thank the police chief and the director of public works to give their insight, because when we're dealing with state entities such as a traffic study, as the director of public works stated, and then along with these streetlights, and then we'll have to deal with RIPTA as a separate entity. So we're dealing with all these separate entities.
Yeah.
What I might want to add, and I had a brief conversation with our Director of Community Development, and she pointed out some things, but I like to always make a valiant try, and I just want to discuss with my colleagues that just recently the town of Bristol, without getting in detail, the land that abuts Bordertown where your neighborhood is, was purchased. There are plans to what we're going to have done there. I would like, and it's going to cost money, so that's why I would like to just put, because we're going to continue this, but for my colleagues to realize, other than, maybe the possibility of dealing with RIPTA, if your residents can take the bus at the Fatima Drive area instead of the Bristol-Warren line, if we can have a new paper road done, is it Greg Drive that goes, Greg Drive, where you used to live, right? That ends. We can continue on a new road and go out where Kickamuit closes is that what they call the condos over there? Kane.
Caneway.
So this is just a suggestion to my colleagues of a possibility, and I know Diane mentioned that there's wetlands. So with that question of wetlands and all the permitting, I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there because I don't know the roadblocks, no pun intended, that we might come upon. But I know a Metacom overlay suggests that we take neighborhoods and clusters and try to make the traffic flow through the neighborhoods to designated lights, as the chief was saying, that is described throughout our town, in which we try to ascertain as we go along. But I agree that when we're dealing with the state with the high volume of traffic on the area, associated with accidents and the congestion as it is, to put an additional light, I'm not going to say it's highly feasible, but that's just my opinion. So that's why I was thinking of an alternative situation of egress out of that neighborhood to that light at Fatimer, and then talk to Ripter about putting a bus stop there for safety. So that was just a suggestion to my colleagues. I don't know if it would end at a certain juncture of conversation with the wetlands and getting involved with it.
Well, I mean, one of the things about that, though, is that you have, I mean, sometimes people don't have a car that they can just leave in a parking lot. But if we do, even if you didn't build a road, we would have parking for that wetland, that hiking trail area, so people could just park there if they, had that ability to do that. So that would be one thing, you would have to do the
sidewalk
road.
or something,
Yeah, you wouldn't have to really do but they could just park there, and then they just go back to their
Well, you don't want to go on wetlands.
No, I'm not saying they'd walk, they could just, if they could.
So
The
how-
other thing is, I just had a question about the egress question that has come up. I mean, I'm sure we did it for a reason on closing off Sachem, but maybe we should just look at that and decide whether that should go back to being open. And I know the neighbors probably would not be happy about that as I'm saying it, but, I mean, for emergency purposes only. I mean, if it is, I mean, I'd have to leave that up to the fire chief and the police chief to make that determination. I don't know.
As I said to you, I lived there for 20 years. There were some calls there, and we need to get into a neighborhood from the police side. We're going to get in, I can tell you right now. We will get in there, and I can speak for the fire department. We've never been called to assist and not been able to get there. We're going to go in. So I do agree that it needs to be studied. I know that back then, only because I lived in that neighborhood, that was vented between the planning board, the zoning board, when that development was designed. As I said, I was number 24 Gregg Drive. That's the last house before it kicked through, whether it be Canes Way onto San Francisco or right across to Tupelo. There are many options. I leave that up to everyone that has more information. But for right now, I just want everybody to know, and I want that neighborhood to continue to know, we will get in there. Worry about nothing. And there are other advantages. Sometimes there's a good way to block the neighborhood off. No one comes out either. But we always look at the safety part of getting in and out of there as quick as we can. But I want everyone to know they're going to be safe there.
Thank you. So here's what we're going to do. We have a motion and a second to continue this. This dialogue will be included in some of that discussion for our next meeting, and we can look, Diane, maybe you can weigh in on if there's appropriateness in regards to something like that in that area, and if you wouldn't mind. And certainly Chief and Director are going to weigh in on what the next step is with the Traffic Commission.
And if I could just weigh in one more thing here, is just so you know, on the opposite side of Jameson, that becomes Jameson, the north part of Gregg Drive and Justin belongs to Warren.
Right.
Okay? That's Warren's property. So you definitely need to involve the town of Warren when we're going to be making decisions with that neighborhood, just so you know.
Thank you.
Okay?
Hence the name Border Town, right?
Yes. The Warren police respond to certain calls, we respond to others, rescue, and everybody else. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to continue this to the 25th with all the discussion that happened. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very much.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, members of the Town Council, is item F5. This is the petition of John J. Pascal III, 628 Wood Street, requests council consideration for accessible parking space in the vicinity of his residence. This is the first reading. You have recommendations, all positive, from the Director of Public Works, Chief of Police, and Town Administrator.
Make a motion this constitutes the first reading.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Next item is item F6. This is the petition of Elizabeth Brito, Chairman of the Rogers Free Library Board of Trustees, requests council consideration to support a draft resolution in support of legislative funding for libraries.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Discussion? Betty, did you want to add anything? I've seen you out there waiting. You sure?
I'm all set unless the council...
Sounds like we're moving forward. So we have a motion and a second to approve, or, excuse me, to support. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you.
The next item is the first item in your appointment section for Christmas Festival Committee with term to expire in October of 2016. You have the interest expressed of Stan Dimick, 341 Thames Street.
Make a motion to appoint Stan Dimick to the Christmas Festival Committee.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And also regarding the tree warden appointment, you have a request of the administrator to continue the matter until June 15th.
Motion to continue to June 15th.
Were there any additional applicants since this came out?
We'll not find out until Friday at 4 p.m. At this time, we don't have anybody who has turned in other than the current candidate.
I was thinking, if I may, that when you do find the right qualified person, which may not be all that easy, it sounded as though the proposed contract was a little open-ended. I think that besides the $50 an hour, there ought to be some kind of a hold on it, a maximum or something, to make sure that we don't suddenly get a big bill for more time than you expect him to expend.
Actually, that has been reviewed by the solicitor, but we put that on hold at this point since we don't have any candidates, and we're not going forward with an appointment. But once we do, you will have a different contract, or the contract will be modified, I should say.
I was just thinking, I wonder if Chris Fletcher could recommend somebody, because Chris does so much with trees all around, with Bartlett. He may know of somebody that ought to apply that hasn't thought to do so.
I'll be more than glad to reach out to Chris.
Yeah.
So we need a motion to continue.
So
Second?
There's a motion and a second to continue. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And this is the part where I always say, thank you to our boards and commissions for taking your time and effort and energy out of your days to do good things for Bristol. This council says thank you, and this town says thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is item H1, continued from your April 13th meeting, has to do with the status of the former Azevedo property. We will be considering that during the bid section.
So we want to move this to that section?
That would be up to you.
Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
So you need a motion to that effect? Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We're flying now, aren't we?
Yeah,
My goodness.
cooking with gas.
Trying. The next is continued from May 4th. This has to do with petition of Nicholas Cromwell, request council consideration for a resident fee for non-profit moorings.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nicholas Cromwell, 649 Hope Street. As stated before, I'm the volunteer chairman for East Bay Sailing Foundation. We also have some representatives from the community sailing program over at the Hershoff Museum here today. I presented or sent Lou a set of notes that I hope you received and have had time to review. I would ask if there's any questions specifically about that before I...
Before we go into this, I would like to announce that I will recuse myself because of being a member of the board of the Hershoff Marine Museum.
Please.
Good evening, how are you?
I'm good, Tim.
Good. I read through your letter, and thank you, it was very well done. And I'm very respectful of your decision you want a mooring use to support the mission for the 501c3, which, of course, I'm a supporter for education and sailing and everything else. What I'm a little confused by is last time you were here, you talked about a number of sailors, like 300.
Right.
And then in your letter to us, it looked like that number had dropped down quite a bit. And I was just wondering, is there any way we could take a look at your annual reports to see what greater picture? Because, I mean, we're making a big change to the ordinance here. And we need to have a better breadth of the financials going in, because it seems like the numbers are fluctuating.
Absolutely. So I can explain those. So first of all, Tim, what I would say is that we're not making a change. It's been this way for 30 years, and the change actually happened this year to increase the rates.
Mm-hmm.
So that, I'm asking that we go back to the way it was for the past
Right.
30 years. So I'm hoping that we can accomplish that. The interpretation change needs to be codified. I understand that. But I'm requesting that we don't change as opposed to actually making a change. With regard to the numbers, we have a lot of stuff that goes on at East Bay Sailing Foundation, and probably a really simple way to explain it is there's two types of boats. There's the boats that sit on dollies that the kids and adults can pick up and drive into the water on a ramp. And then there's the larger boats that are out on moorings. We have two sets of classes that use those boats, and so when I talk about 300-ish students in our classes, that's all of those classes combined. I looked at the numbers and said I wouldn't charge or wouldn't increase the fee for the students that aren't using the boats that are on the moorings that the fee's increasing on. So I based that on the 100 and I think it's 20 average over the past 5 years.
Yeah, you talked about 120 sailors.
120 sailors over the past 5 years is our average, and how much we charge them. And then I increased it by, I just divided by that number for the 3,400 number that the increase occurred this year. Is that clear? I'm sorry, I understand there was a little confusion with that.
I think, good evening. By the classes, I have the same question. When you do your registration pertaining to those numbers, whether it be high school or whether you're chartering, your juniors, your adults, are you saying that the price tier of the people that aren't using the boats are different than the initial fee for the class, whether they have one session, 2 sessions where you provide the discounts? I think Councilman Sweeney's looking at a price structure per the sailing as a total
Right.
on how we're coming up to that number. Are you saying that, for the first 2 sessions, you're not going to use any boats, so you're just going to pay this registration, but then when you do use the boats, you have to go up to this tier and you're going to pay this registration? Is that how your format is online right now?
It is with one caveat, and that is that the classes run at the same time. And so we have a group of students with instructors that are using boats that are on the hand trucks or dollies, and they pay a fee. Those boats, they also then charter, so they then come to us and pay us to utilize those boats. The classes that are using the boats that are out on the moorings, the fee is higher, but they're not bringing their own boats or chartering boats from us to utilize. So it is different, and it's a different structure. We try to make it fair and competitive across all of our fees, which is important. We are competing against the other programs in the Bay. I mentioned that our fees are already high by comparison, and by increasing this, it's a significant increase that makes us be not very competitive, in my opinion.
And I understand that you do have to be competitive. There are other sailing programs, and thank you for providing the rate structure in comparison to them. To that note, because you're in a competitive environment, you do have non-residents that come to your program that aren't residents of Bristol. So it's a mixture of residents versus non-residents.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So we're open to anyone who wants to come and sail. We actually get people who summer in Bristol and live in California, and those sorts of things. But they come to Bristol, and they really like Bristol, and we have a lot of people who come in from out out of town, and I think it's a huge asset as our part of the community to do that. I think one of the things, and I kind of mentioned it in my notes, I would hope that you view this community sailing program as sort of a youth sporting and adult sporting activity, right? I mean, like a Little League or a soccer or, the other activities that we do in town. And it's great that we support them. It's great that we've supported the nonprofits for the past 30 years by having them at a residential rate, and I think we should just continue that.
And you are correct. We do support nonprofits in different menial ways versus a structure that's part of an ordinance change. I think what concerns me is resident versus non-resident, because you are getting non-residents. If we're going to change the structure of our ordinance of a clause, I think it would have to be a separate clause and maybe a whole separate rate for a nonprofit, not just a resident rate. Where that discussion would lie with my colleagues to be on a professional manner of how that would pertain, because as you're saying, we would be promoting as a community to help a nonprofit in that type of manner. Is that the type of road we want to go down by structuring our ordinance to do so versus how we usually accommodate other nonprofits in the way that we do? So I just want to convey that to you of where I stand, of what I'm leaning towards, of trying to craft something if my colleagues come to a conclusion.
So I think I said at the last time this was presented, I mean, to me, I think it's pretty simple that we should leave it the way it is. Resident being, that the sailing school is for the purposes of the ordinance, we considered resident even though it's a sailing school. And if we wanted to go and separate that and classify it as sailing schools, that they would get this rate or whatever, I think that mechanism can be worked out. I think for the bottom line, I think it is important to do that, to keep it the way it is, because if you want to be competitive, I've heard Halsey say many times over the years, I'm not a sailor, I wish I were, but that, Narragansett Bay is some of the best sailing in the world. We have made a concerted effort to really, sell that aspect as part of our economic development plan, with all the investment in the Maritime Center and the new marina that we're going to be building. So I think it's important that, you've got to keep people sailing and, saying, wow, I love this, let's buy a boat and moor it right here in Bristol, so that we can, not that there's any shortage of people looking for moorings here, or boat slips. But, I think that's the kind of thing that we would want to do. And to me, it aligns perfectly with all of the other efforts that we're making, that we'd want to be able that we not only have the facilities, but we also are teaching people to use, how to sail and how to do it safely. Now, I think you also made a good point about the sports. I never really thought about it in that way. I was thinking about it more about all the investment we've made about our waterfront, and this is a big part of it. So I support keeping it the way it is, and we just have to figure out that mechanism, in my view.
I just think there's a fine line of how we support it, because the chairman made a statement that when we restructured the fees, we restructured them in a way, and we took a lot of time with it, is because of the direction the town of Bristol is going in comparison and where we want to position ourselves with the productivity of other venues that we're doing. Getting back to Vice Chairman Sweeney's comment about fiscal and how we support nonprofits, you also have donors, you have sponsors, those finances. I know you mentioned that you might have to cut programs of how, and that's up to your board on how you're going to structure if you have to, take this increase in the fee. But also, when a town or municipality, and I guess I'll be the one to say this because it's out there today, of, when municipalities are backing nonprofits and, putting these laws on the books, or when it's attached to money, I think these are the questions that have to be asked, just to do our prudent job of how we're trying to help and do it in a fashion where it meets both needs and it's transparent. So.
Yes, sir. If I may, sir, I totally understand. And the Harbor Commission and the work that went into changing the fees didn't consider this at all, in my understanding. And this increase is sort of a windfall for the town and a detriment to our programs. So it was not anticipated that $5,000 was in that budget, according to what the Harbor Master and the Harbor Commission have both told me. And so I understand and I appreciate that. And I have no problem paying the additional fee for residents of what, I think that went up by $10 or $15. That I completely understand and agree with, and the analysis that was done, completely appropriate. And then I would, in my notes, other towns do support the nonprofits in this way, specifically exactly like we've done for 30 years. And I guess that this is, a change, but due to the change in the interpretation, we are now asking to codify it because that interpretation has changed.
See, I don't agree. And here's why I don't agree, is that if we change these fees, then we're taking the cost of this and putting it on to residents who potentially don't use the harbor. And we changed the fees, so there was a perception that the harbor department made a lot of money for the town. That perception was false. The harbor department was breaking even, by no fault of the people that are sitting there or anything else. It was the fees were too low. We were on the other side of it. We were actually losing money every year. This fee was changed, and I have a boat, to be clear. I'm paying more, and I know you've said that you'd pay more of the residential rate, but I don't think you can define this as residential, because a resident doesn't have 12 moorings. Or I don't know how many, off the top of my head, I'm just saying 12, but that's not really what it was designed for, and I don't like taking this fee and this cost and putting it on to the people that aren't using it or are using it, the combination of both. I also don't think personally, and this is no reflection on the quality of the sailing, and it's not the importance of it. It has nothing to do with that. It's more of, I don't think $30 is that much in regards to that was if you left everything how it was. You could keep the rate as it is. I don't know your finances, and I'm not asking for them. I don't think it's mine to ask you that. But personally, I don't want to put this on the people, because I feel like we do that with a lot of stuff. When we changed the fees, we were very specific not to touch this part and touch that part. After a while, then we're just we're kind of subventing those costs. And to your point about supporting other sports, can't think of one that we give $3,400 a year to. And I might be wrong with that, but I don't believe we do. So
I haven't looked at the specific other nonprofits, because I don't want to get into you give these guys money, you should give me money. I mean, I don't think that the town is absorbing the burden, because I don't think the burden was there. If you had, through your analysis on your Harbor Commission, come and said, hey, we need to change this, and that had been done, I think that you would be accurate in what you're saying, but it wasn't, and so therefore you're kind of adding this on top of to make whole something that already is whole. So you've already made changes to make the residents whole, so to speak, in that they're not losing money on the harbor, and now we're adding additional money at the detriment of nonprofits that are trying to facilitate better use and more use of the local asset and promote Bristol as a maritime community, which I think is important. So anyway, that's just my 2 cents. And
I mean, I do think that if we, there may be some hybrid, where it's not such a big hit, that might be like a nonprofit. And I don't really like the word, I don't want to just say nonprofit rate, because I want it to be a nonprofit sailing school rate, not just like somebody decides they're going to have something else go on and they happen to be a nonprofit. I mean, I think it's like the idea that we're taking this, and if you look, and I'm not really familiar with this, I'm sure, Nick, you know this better than I do, but I know that Providence, everywhere you look, there's sailing schools popping up. And I know that I've not done it with kids that I work with, but I know that I think some of the after-school programs and others in Providence are bringing kids out and exposing them to the water and to sailing through some of these programs. So, I mean, I think that that's important. I think that that's what we know. We have a long history on building sailboats here, and it's part of our history, our culture. And I think it's something that you'd want to have sailing schools that people could afford. Now, I'm not even sure that what you're charging is affordable to many people, but I think that, I don't think it would, like, I agree with your point that this has not been factored into our income projections. So it's really becomes like a kind of like a net zero, right? I mean, it's not factored in, so it's not, so it's not really showing up anywhere on the budget. So it's a matter of the interpretation under the new regulations and fee structure. So I think that we should, if nothing else, work on it to say, here's a nonprofit sailing school rate, and encourage that as much as we can, and hopefully if you get more people interested, maybe the prices even come down, or be able to offer it to people that, that have more modest means and may not be able to afford $500. I mean, I don't know how this compares to all the others, but I think it's important because that's a part of Bristol's heritage.
So we do have scholarship programs that are in place, a lot donations that are given that we extend for the people that can't afford it. We don't do as much as some other programs do because it's hard and it's a lot of work, right? There are community, you mentioned the one in Providence, great program, has a lot of school kids coming out. We're currently working with some YMCA, and we've started talking about Parks and Recreation with the board to try to encourage after-school activities. The new Maritime Center is really appealing to try to get some activities going there, and we want to do all of these things. But at the same time, we have to be mindful of our budget. And with a hit like this, and we operate at a very thin margin. We are constantly asking for more money and looking for ways to save money.
We feel your pain, sir. We feel your pain.
Yeah,
So-
completely. But the so we do have some scholarship programs that, like I said, we don't do as good of a job, but we are looking to do more of that. We want to partner with Mount Hope and build a high school sailing team, which is something that started a couple of years ago and never really took off. But those are the sorts of things that we see East Bay Sailing Foundation being able to provide and do to the community. I do have some members from Herreshoff here, and they can probably talk a little bit more about their specific scholarship programs and what they do, which might be appropriate at this time.
But it would and it wouldn't, and here's why, is that really the discussion here is whether or not we're going to, whether we leave the fees where they are. So what I would ask is, and certainly I welcome your input, but what I'd ask from my colleagues is what would you like to do from here?
My thinking is that we take the ordinance, we break out a little bit for the 501c3s for the sailing program, but we come to some sort of compromise as far as a rate. As far as not 100, but maybe 200 for that, or work with you guys as far as what that rate would be. And we come to a happy medium. I think, I think that's fair. And I don't know how you feel about it, Nick, or the Herreshoff sailing program.
I would just say that it's kind of unfortunate that we're going back on 30 years of history, right?
I'm just trying to...
I completely understand the negotiations here. I would just throw that out, that for 30 years we've done it this way, and not being able to just codify what we've done for 30 years, what our predecessors have done, is unfortunate. I think that's great. I think if that's the middle ground that we need to take, that's appropriate. I think that it might be appropriate to make it a percentage of the residential rate, where we say it's 125% or 150% of the residential rate as a recommendation, and therefore you don't have to revisit it every year.
Right.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? So we'll continue this to our next meeting, which is June 15th, because we're not going to we can't decide this tonight. I should, unless my colleagues feel otherwise, is that what I would ask you to do is work with our harbor master, propose a solution to come back in front of the council with that proposed solution. I can tell you for myself, as you can clearly hear, that's not something that I'm in favor of, not because I don't support sailing, and it has nothing to do with the quality. It's just about the dollars that are required to do what we need to do. So, but I cut you off with the Herreshoff. Did you want to share?
Yes. Jeffrey McDonough, Polk Court. I'm a head and sailing instructor over at Herreshoff.
Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. Currently, today actually, I just had a lesson today from about 4 o'clock to 5:30 with members of the Highlander Charter School, which I don't know if you know, is just moved into Warren. They were outgrowing their building in Providence, and they expanded into Warren. Over the years at Herreshoff, we have a massive scholarship program, one that I was actually a member of. Growing up, both my parents lost their jobs when I was in 6th grade. I then was able to attend a Herreshoff based on a scholarship program. From there, I learned how to sail. Love it. I sail almost every day I can. And then now I've become the head sailing instructor over at Herreshoff about 9 years
Great
later.
story.
So, but many years, over the years, we've had scholarship programs. Last year we had too much money in our scholarship program. We tried to give out money, and people would not take it.
Well, let me
Nick
hear that
Cromwell
again.
would be happy to take it.
I got a lot of kids in Pawtucket that I work with that might be interested.
Yes, so we've had students from Paul Cuffey up in Providence, students that have never even seen the water possibly, and never even dreamed of coming on a boat, and yet they're coming down to Herreshoff via our transportation. I drove them. I picked them up from Providence and brought them down here. They love it. They had a blast. I mean, I just had a lesson today with them. So they're loving it. We've done this for, I think, 3 years now with at least Paul Cuffey, and now down the Harlander Charter School as well.
That's fantastic.
So, we've tried to do lots of outreach. We are over at Herreshoff. We don't have boats that we get to put up onto dollies and wheel them onto shore. We have about 750-pound lead keels on the bottom of our boats, so all of them have to sit on a mooring. So the increase in mooring rates is actually more of a hit on us than I feel percentage-wise, but it's definitely a hurt in our program, and we don't have as many kids as Nick does. We have about max 40 kids a week, so it's definitely a hit towards us, for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dana Clough, Academy Avenue. I'd just like to say I'm a new Bristol resident. Part of the reason I moved here was because I was able to establish a position at the Herreshoff. My background is 5 years of nonprofit work, Children's Museum in the New Haven, Connecticut area. I'm still learning the programs and the structure. I've only been here since February. But just seeing the nonprofit work and what they're able to accomplish, but also with how little they're able to accomplish it with, after speaking to the director of the museum regarding this issue, the hardest hit was having no notice and no conversation in regards to this issue. And so this money for this year has to come out of operations, which means it has to come out of somewhere. Establishing programs like the scholarship, when we're able to recognize, and the biggest issue when you're trying to give away scholarship is getting the kids there, is transportation. And so we've established programs to do that, and I would hate to then cut back on things like that. And also, I just want to echo all of the hard work that Nick's done and research, comparing communities and sort of what's going on in the area.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
We're
you.
listening.
And welcome to Bristol.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So can we have a motion to continue this to the 15th, but we will refer it to the harbor master to work with the applicants?
So moved.
Is there
Second.
a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you all.
Thank you.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, this is the matter of the lease of the property relating to Guido's Restaurant, this solicitor.
And we'll be dealing with that in executive session.
Fair enough.
But it appears to all be resolved.
Fair enough.
Oh, great.
Yeah, the next item is notice from Coastal East Coast Management Council regarding the application of Raymond Payson and Marcia Blount with the deadline to request a hearing by June 2.
Motion to receive and file?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next is the annual resolution for the Bristol 4th of July celebration.
Motion to adopt the resolution submitted by the Bristol 4th of July Committee for the year 2016 events.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? No? Okay.
Next is item I3. This is from the Bond Council regarding the reimbursement resolution for the road pavement program.
Is there a motion?
Motion to approve the reimbursement resolution of the road pavement program.
Second?
All in favor?
I'd like to discuss it, Mr. Chairman.
Discussion?
If the residents remember that we proposed this resolution to continue the road program this summer, and then we had discussions of other resolution for our bond referendum that's going to be placed on the ballot to continue these capital projects such as drainage and road improvement. Just for your information, a lot of people have been inquiring about the milling that's been taking place throughout the town.
Councilman Stewart, what's milling?
That's when you're seeing half of the road service that was utility cuts by National Grid. They are coming in to do half the road, to the curb as they're supposed to be. Working with the Director of Public Works and the administration, working with National Grid, it is a coordinated effort when we instill the road program, so going forward, it will be unison. And for the majority of the roads that were milled, we did go curb to curb to maximize our dollars on your behalf, because it only makes sense that when they're doing half the road, we spend your tax dollars to do the other half while they're here, while the contractor's here. We try to do that in every case before we go forward. Some cases, some of the roads identified that National Grid has already addressed needs reconstruction. That's part of the program going forward in the multi-year plan. So some of those are just done half, and that's why. I know a lot of people are asking, why is only half a road being done? That's National Grid. But for this summer, for my colleagues to be provided part of the resolution, as you could tell, the streets have been identified. Also with good news through the administration and the Public Works Director, we will be having the revolving fund for Buttonwood, Magnolia, and Franklin also. And also, like I said, going forward, there'll be multitude of streets going curb to curb with National Grid. So we just want to update them through this resolution that it will be continuing after 4th of July. So you're going to see a lot of activity. So we just ask you for your patience, and thank you.
And just a point of clarity on that, that resolution's for $1 million. And unfortunately, $1 million doesn't go that far in roads, but every road to get done this year, as Councilman Stewart did mention, we have a referendum for our November ballot, which will include about $5 million for road improvements, which will allow us then to do improvements for the next following 5 years. And there's just so much more to do, but you start with that first step, and we've done that. So
It's a great start.
It absolutely is. So we have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next item is a request for executive session regarding the acquisition of real property, and I'm assuming the council will like to take that up at the conclusion of the public agenda.
Yes, please.
Yes.
The next is from the Community Development Director regarding the Solarized Bristol program.
Good evening, Diane.
Moira.
Good evening.
Thank you. I just gave you a little memo and some information about the program, the Solarized program. As a sort of a public service announcement, we are encouraging folks to sign up if they haven't already. We are planning another community event in the Quinta Gamelin early June. We'll have the date announced soon. We're planning to set up a table in the Rogers Free Library a couple days a week to let people come in and sign up if they're interested. We have the banners. I believe they'll be going up shortly. So we've gotten good outreach, and I'm really pleased with the people who have, the amount of people who have expressed interest. And I just wanted to keep pushing the word out so that people continue to sign up. The deadline is June 26th.
So, Diane, if I'm interested in signing up, I would...
Go to the website, solarizeri.com.
So that's solarizeri.com?
Yes, that's it.
Okay.
Well, Diane, this is obviously a good program, and your memo made clear the general magnitude of savings that might accrue. Of course, it depends on different for every facility. But what is the capital cost for a user? Suppose somebody wants to put a bunch of these on their house. What do they have to pay to get that done?
Well, that depends on the location, the size, and it's all, the vendor will come out and price it with you. They'll look at the savings that you can get, the costs that you'll have to pay. There's 2 financial incentives from the state. They'll hook you up with those if you're eligible. and they'll give you a proposal, and then you can decide based on that proposal if you want to go forward.
But what I'm wondering is, supposing it costs X, are there subsidies that come from
Yes.
government?
Yes.
What's the magnitude of those as a percentage, roughly?
Oh, I don't know if I can, I think I gave you this handout, and it's on one of the pages in there. The Renewable Energy Fund grant, they start at $1.15 per watt.
Yeah.
It says the average residential system would qualify for a grant of $6,325. And then the other one is the renewable energy growth, where you sell your electricity that back to the grid, and that is, they'll pay you up to 37.6 cents per kilowatt hour for solar generation, and that's up to 15 or 20 years for residential customers or 20 years for non-residential customers. So it really depends on the program.
So you need to get the go through the process and make sure it's something that makes sense to you.
And they'll come out to your house, they'll do a site visit, they'll leave you with a proposal, and you can, review it and then decide by the end of the year.
But I think the thing is, even before that, they can look on Google Maps and just give you a general idea, because that's what they did to me. I just haven't had time to follow up, like in person. But I just had two quick questions about that. So in the historic district, is there a simple way that you could get an idea by going in there and saying, will you approve it if is it worth my time to pursue it if you live in the historic district, to ask them?
Andy? You're welcome.
Not yet, but we're working on it.
Well, this ends June 26th for these incentives.
So how quickly are you working on it, Andy?
I just want to add, you have a year to actually,
Oh, you
you
do?
have to sign up by June 26th, but you have a year
So
to
once
do
you
the installation.
express
actually have to do
interest,
it, though?
Yes.
you
Then
have
you're
a
in.
year from that expression of interest to actually doing
You
something.
have to sign the contract by the end of June, but then you have a year to,
But if you're not allowed to do it, then what happens to the contract? Can you get out of it?
oh, good point.
No.
I think, not to interrupt you, Andy, but I think that there are situations like this, Councilwoman, that even at the state level, this should have been addressed going forward with this program in all the municipalities, because I would imagine it's just a valid question if there's zoning issues or districts, when they crafted this program at the state level, like Mary said, when we have until June 26th, can I get out of the contract? I just would have thought there would have been questions like that, not so much on you, Diane, or Andy. I'm just thinking,
I think just to clarify,
In historic
because it's a
district,
good
homes
point,
would
and,
need it the most, in some respects.
I'm not sure if, it wouldn't make sense that you would have to sign the contract and pay without knowing that you're going to be able to do it. So
Well, I'll
I will circle back on that for the next meeting, just to clarify. I don't want to put confusion out there with people and make them timid about applying.
So let's do this then, Lynn. If you're in the historic district and you're interested in doing this, make sure you get clarity
Thank you.
before you put pen to paper.
That's what I'm just wondering, like, can you get that clarity now? Like, can you go to the office and ask them, like it says here, if it's not really visible from the street, like, are they able to go out and say, you got a 99% chance, or you've got a 10% chance of getting the okay? Is this going to be an administrative piece, or is it a whole big?
Well, as I indicated, I think the best answer to that is not my usual yes and no, but not yet. I would hope that it would. That's what we're trying to work on, is some sort of guidelines, what's visible and not visible. Clearly the street frontages, the roofs that are facing the streets in the historic district, that's very unlikely to be approved. The roofs that are totally not visible from the street are very likely to be approved. What we're trying to do is come to some sort of better way to answer that question for most of the other ones, which may be, not right on the street, but visible, and to be able to exactly give that answer, as you say. It's not a problem unique to Bristol. I represented a couple years ago someone who got one of the first grants from the State Energy Office to put solar panels on their roof. They weren't even in a local historic district. They were in a National Register historic district, and because it was the government money coming to do it, the State Historic Preservation and Heritage Commission had to approve it, and they said no initially. And I had to go and argue with them successfully, ultimately, to allow it, and I think we will have it, and I'm sure, as Diane says, we'll make sure that, if it's impossible, if it's illegal to do it, then you're not going to be locked into the contract, but we're trying to get some easy guidelines so that people will know that quickly.
Maybe that you can know that this council is in very much support. We've been in support of initiatives like this, and conveying that to that governing, HDC, so they know that we're in support of this, and what help and assistance that you need from us, please tell us.
And I will have, we, as I mentioned earlier, we're having another community workshop scheduling for early June, and I will make sure I have clarity on that for the workshop. We did speak to the solar vendor, and I did ask him to give me a list of the addresses with the historic district properties, so that we can maybe, if we need to have a special meeting with them, just to go over each property, or just to kind of assess it early on.
Good.
That would be great.
And we're going to be working on that. We have a partner who has been really, really good at helping us with the outreach, and they suggested that as an idea. And our vendor has done a lot of historic properties in Providence, so he's pretty well versed on the different look of it, the different types of materials and things. So I think it'll be.
So Diane, I signed up today, so they already reached out to me to come do an estimate. So will they do an estimate and then they're going to reach out to you, or will they, because I'm a historical home, so I don't even know if I would be approved. But what does that, the estimator do from there? Does it?
So they'll give you a proposal, and we can look at that property. I can reach out to them again and just go over. We did already talk about getting the properties in the historic district together to see.
Right. I think it's great.
So
Yep, good.
I'll keep following up on that, and then we'll let you know.
Good.
What it
How many people expressed interest so far from Bristol?
So far, we have, I believe, we're up to 73.
Wow.
So why don't we do this, Diane? If there's anybody who's in the historic district that's already signed up, or anybody in the historic district who's considering sign up, just keep this in the front of your mind, and we'll work on this closely, and make sure that no one is uninformed before they take the next step.
I think time is of the essence on one topic, though, is June 26th is right around the corner, and I think to get a valid answer on the contractual part, because we could always buy the time that if you're not binded contractually because of this loophole with the HDC, because locally, as the chairman said, we would support this initiative to get people on board if they're suitable. But when we're dealing with HDC, sometimes it's out of our hands because you're dealing with the federal interior standards and also with the statewide energy resource office. You wonder if you need approvals from them, and that's why. But if we could get a rider, even expedited part of that contract to help the HDC people, Andy, I don't know, I'm not a solicitor, but I'm just giving ideas.
So let's consider that. And in fact, if you could just give us an update at our next meeting on how you made out with that, and we'll convey that to everyone.
And I'll let you know when the workshop is, and
Please do.
we'll put something on our website also, because they have a presentation that I can put on the website that will help people.
So Diane, would you like us to continue this to the next meeting? Would that be
Which is
best?
when?
Is the 15th, if my memory is correct?
Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, the next item is the report on the Maritime Center project from the treasurer.
So we're...
Do we have a group in the audience that represents such a thing here this evening?
We do.
Yeah?
It's a wonderful group.
Gang in the back there, I'm sure they'd be happy to come up and share some of their experience on this project. It's been a very good project.
The Capital Projects
Yes,
Committee.
the Capital Projects Committee, so been running overseeing the Maritime Center project. It's been a great team to work with, and we're really pleased with how that project has gone. So as I've been telling you all along, we were waiting on some of the final exterior structural repairs to see how the budget numbers came in, because you never know until you're really at the finish line how much money you truly have left. It seems like things sneak up on you, unexpected costs, things you didn't consider. So we really wanted to exercise caution so we weren't going over the budget. So we feel pretty comfortable with where we are now. At the last meeting, Councilwoman Perella had asked me for some pictures of the structural work and sort of a synopsis of what had been done and what needed to be done. So I've provided that for your reference.
Very nice.
The bottom line is that we have about $58,000 left in our budget, and the structural repairs that we were hoping to accomplish are $110,000. So we're about $53,000 short. And you had said at a couple meetings ago, if we find ourselves in that position, please come forward to the council for your consideration, and so that's what we're doing tonight.
So this $53,000 that we're short, it would allow us to do what? If this council said yes to that, what would allow us to do? Just
So-
big picture.
Okay, so if you're standing on the waterfront looking at the building where there's a side door, you can see a large crack going down the building. So this would repair that crack as well as the turret and any other structural work that needs to be done on that wall.
When you say rebuild the turret, what does that mean? I mean,
Would any
does
of
it...
our CPC
does it-
members who are more...
Need our engineers.
Bill,
Here we go.
he can speak much better than I can.
Don't speak to speak too much, though. Okay.
Good evening.
Good
It's
evening.
Bill Gano from 11 Smith Street, member of the Capital Projects Commission.
Welcome.
So the turret repair would involve some drilling. They'd be setting anchors in, similar to the repair mechanisms that were used on the other exterior walls. So it would penetrate. There would be a filling material to anchor the bolts, and then there'd be a plug put back in, so cosmetically it would appear much as it does now, and it would provide an anchoring point so that there would be no further movement, and then they'd fill the cracks with material so that it would be almost...
So it's not really a rebuilding, it's really a implementation of additional structure to save it in the future.
Yeah, it's if you looked at it as the longevity of the building, the areas we were able to affect within the scope of the Maritime Center, we probably preserved the structure from, 20 years from now, you'll probably have to implement some level of repair again in the future, but as far as sustainability and long-term life cycle cost of the building, you've alleviated any potential of imminent failure. And in particular, we were introducing new loads into those same walls as part of their renovation, so there was additional risk that we were going to further load those walls to the point where we might have accelerated the failure. But those walls were fully restored, and now, while this is not one of those walls that we did introduce new loads or new risks, we did evaluate the rest of the building under the engineering that was done with the grant, and we prioritized some remaining work, and I think that was in the vicinity of about $190,000. And this was the highest priority item. This $110,000 turret and crack in the building was the highest priority remaining item on that list of things that would have to be done at some point in the future. So there is still some deferred work, but this is the high priority element that probably would potentially expand and grow in terms of scope and total cost to eventually repair if we don't nip it in the bud now.
Is there cost savings to the town by doing it now versus holding off?
Yeah, deferment could accelerate the cracking and the size of the area that would have to be repaired. We will lock it in place with these anchors at this point, fill the mortar, so there would be no further degradation in this area of the building. So the deferment gives
Is a
a risk of
potential
additional
cost.
cost.
Okay.
And the fact that we've got matching monies by doing it now does, percentage-wise, lower the cost a little bit in that respect.
Well, I have a slightly different view of this thing. Particularly the chairman and I have kept close to him. We've been down there and inspected and all. One of the things that happened when we were down there was a promise to face up the south section without any charge. Has that been done, Julie, or not?
It was.
Was that done?
South elevation?
Okay. Well, now, in other respects, I don't want to see us spend more money than has been budgeted so far, because we all, as you say, Julie, are appreciative of some good work down there, and it's getting done, which is very important. One of the problems is whenever some job gets done, I always have somebody come in, they want a little more money at the end. How assured are we that that's not going to happen?
Well, we were pretty cautious, and we waited, and we feel like we're at that point now. We don't anticipate anything further coming in. I've asked that exact question as many ways as I could. Is this the time? Because we've been waiting and waiting to bring this to you until we really felt confident that the numbers are in. So I think the numbers are final now. I can't say that with 100% certainty. You never know, but I feel pretty confident.
Well, I certainly appreciate your diligence on that, but nobody's really signed off, have they? That guarantee no extra billings?
No.
No. Well,
But we've been assured that there won't be any from the contractors, but nobody has.
well, we always want everything perfect, but if you took all these dollar numbers on here for the things that are only partially done, they add up to more like 200,000 than 100,000. And I think myself that with all the criticism there's been around town about the cost of this project, that my view is, rather reluctantly, that we should stop it and recognize that it will be an obligation of the town to come back here in a reasonable time period, maybe when the finances aren't quite as critical, and do this additional work. This building is what, 145 years old or something like that? It's a long time. I mean, we're at one short point within a long time. It's not going to fall down tomorrow. And one part of this that I find a little surprising isn't done. Remember, we talked back along about the fact that for some odd reason they didn't do the complete north face. And there's an estimate in here of $20,000 to finish that. I could never understand why the wall right over the front door didn't get repaired before some other things. So my view is to fit a little work like that into the 58,000, but not undertake this big job and swell out the cost of the thing overall, which is just going to bring on more and more criticism that we've been irresponsible. I'm not saying we have been irresponsible, but we may be perceived as being irresponsible, that we've allowed this to come in above budget.
Diane and I have obviously been talking about this a lot, and we've talked about that there are grant opportunities out there, and so we could, we have a very clear idea of what needs to be done. We could try and bundle, some of these things up and put it out as one project, next year with a grant, with a grant application. So I think we recognize that there are some areas that are more critical. I think the reason they didn't do that north face above the front door was because it was a priority of 3, and there were some other priorities that were higher, so they just moved around to the higher priority areas. But I think either way, there's Greg can probably report to some of the additional work that he'd like to eventually do on the inside with the heating and some of the noise reduction things. So there are other items we could move into the interior and do a couple of more things that weren't initially on the list, but would certainly benefit the building. And so we're open to that too, and we're bringing this to you for the general discussion.
Yeah. Well, I personally think that's the way to go about it, and I do think too that given a little time, year or two or something, this is a very suitable type thing for a grant from Champlin or some other to preserve a historic building, and I think if we had a little time, we could get a grant and not have to spend the money ourselves.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, man. Julie, so take me down the avenue, if we're going to repair it, because we poured a lot of money into this investment, and there's a risk involved with waiting. Where would that money come from? And number 2, I guess the question would be for you, what is the risk of waiting for us to get a grant and waiting a little while, and what's that timeline?
So the funding, I believe, would come from our public buildings bond, and we probably utilize the reimbursement resolution that we have in place, and we would bundle that. Future borrowing with our roads, we would add that amount to our borrowing.
Is this already set up? Is there is the construction still there? And so it's all, it would cost less to do it now?
Yeah, and I did try and get the cost of a remobilization. I don't have that cost.
Right.
I don't.
That's actually what I was asking earlier.
Yeah.
Question is, if the scaffolding comes down and has to go back up.
The part of securing the dunnage and having both work teams on site, where Tavares would provide the dunnage you're talking about two separate contractors that are already engaged on site, haven't totally cleared the property yet. So I think knowing the area, having the measurements already done for the size of the anchors, the subcontractors that are the engineering professionals, they have to size each of those anchors specific to a location, so it's not a standard off-the-shelf component. So they're aligned, they know the building, they know the depths.
Right.
I think to gain that familiarity, it would be a far more involved process, and that, of course, adds up to cost again. So,
And this is not to exceed cost also.
right,
Right.
they'd be willing to work, pretty much at a firm fixed price kind of situation at this point, without any new engineering. Whereas if we wait 3-4 years, I think the risk is minimal in terms of a great growth of cost or great growth, but it's going to be refamiliarization and a bidding process, and we end up paying for that in the end.
I think that, I'm a big proponent of, I like to get these jobs done right the first time. And, I hate to be penny wise and pound foolish. You're talking like $53,000 in the scope of the whole big project. And if this is like in that bad a shape, and it's right on the water side, so you've got the weather that really hits it, and everybody's already mobilized to do it. It seems to me a far better deal to do it now, get it done, and will that side be complete then?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the list there to see exactly how they gridded it out.
The
But
west elevation, so.
Yeah, there's just one west side that's not,
Right.
yeah.
So that would complete that side.
Right.
So
Yes.
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 I applaud all of you of the time and effort. This has been an ongoing project. But my frustration lies with Councilman Herreshoff, and I know the chairman has said this. So aside from all your efforts, I don't want you to be misconstrued by my statement. I'm going way back when the structural study was done on this building that dismays me of these overruns, and that was the caution of this council right from the beginning with this project. And what's frustrating is coming in on budget, and then we're a little over budget, and then last year we're at the Burnside for these walls, accessing a grant that this council supported. But at that time, we keep saying, well, is it over? Are there going to be more overruns? And it seems like it's just never-ending, and that's the frustrating part of here we are trying to seek another grant to finish the project. So when is the project going to be finished is the frustrating part, because it seems like we're still at these meetings and there's these overruns of what we should be, addressing structurally. And I still feel, my own opinion, that a lot of this should have been assessed and put a price tag when we had the constructural study done many years ago when this was all put together, apart from the Capital Projects Commission and all your efforts. So I just want to be on the record again to say, going forward, we have to, I understand you want to spend your money wisely, but it's just frustrating because I thought, after the last grant that we were going to apply to this, we were seeing the end of the road, and it's just...
So I think, when we did this original study, I think before I was even on board, it was well over $1 million worth of work that was expected, that was needed on the building. Now, that's to make it perfect, to fill every crack and crevice. I think the numbers that we ended up getting were less than that. Our initial scope didn't include nearly the structural work, so I want to be careful on saying overrun, because actually the project was so well under budget that we were able to add all of this work, including fire suppression, including all these structural repairs. So really the project has been an immense success, and it's just a matter of, how much more do we want to try and complete at this time. So I just want to be careful as to saying it really wasn't an overrun, because the initial scope didn't include near what we were able to accomplish.
So why don't I rephrase what I meant a long time ago when there was a constructural study, as we're all talking, is if we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And I would just have imagined, other than that scope at the time, that this would have been assessed instead of finding out later,
A lot of this you kind of learn as you go along, too.
And that's the frustrating part, yeah.
Every construction project, I think, you find that.
Especially with old buildings.
So why don't we do this? I hear both sides of this. What's the council's pleasure in regards to $58,190, which is the balance available with it? How much, remind us again, please, how much additional money would have to be spent to fix what is being proposed here?
It's approximately $50,000 53,000, so if you
So about $53,000.
put in
Not to see.
number, that's a reasonable amount that would probably.
Well, you've got 110,660 here. Is that what you have as the cost for that?
Yeah, so that's the full cost, and we have about $58,000 left. So if you did a not to exceed 60,000, that would cover.
But you still have some other works that are still undone. If you look at this list, you'd have the part over the door, and you'd have some more of the east face not done.
Oh, on the structural work.
You're about
Yeah, I mean, in other words,
75,000 after that.
if we throw another 53,000 into this, and we do the one element that's somehow considered the highest priority, that isn't finishing it. There's still going to be the need in some subsequent time to do these other things. You got to fix the part over the door, you got to fix the east part, and you got to work on the turret. And not only that, this 58,000 that's pleasing to see is only 2.5% of the total project. And I'm a little worried that I'm certainly not inviting them to do it, but that somebody's going to come in and say, well, we need a little more money for this small thing that's not yet done.
I mean, we've been told that all the loose ends are tied, and we won't see that. Now, like I said, that's not a guarantee. I think that when it comes to the other priority areas, I think at that point you're really saying, do we put the money into this armory building where there's these areas that there's some cracks and things, but they're not. I think then you're weighing it against work done at the Burnside building or Wally School, I think it becomes a sort of a bigger conversation at that point. I think we address the critical areas now, and we don't try and get every single item. We might.
So what's this council's pleasure?
So this is verbally to the commission with the contractor when this happens, as Councilman Habershoff has stated?
So the owner's rep has gone through everything with the contractors. They're in the final stages. They're getting ready for sign-offs. They've gone through everything, and we're being told that really there's nothing left that hasn't been, no stone unturned. Everything is out. I actually sat for a couple of hours with the owner's rep just to be extra cautious, and we reconciled everything that I had and everything that he had, just to make sure that neither one of us was forgetting anything and that we had everything accounted for. So I feel confident.
On paper with him, not just verbally.
All the vendors, all the contracts, everything that was outstanding.
Is this pretty much like we know the sun's supposed to rise tomorrow, but you can't guarantee it? Is that where we are with this one? Pretty darn close to that?
Yeah.
Okay, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Pressure project. So as Halsey said, you just don't know. Somebody
Right.
can come out of the woodwork and say, oh, by the way, you won't get this important.
Julie,
Well, I would make a motion, do you want a motion?
Yes,
No, do you
please.
want- I would make a motion that we authorize not up to $60,000 to complete the west elevation. I think it's listed in the plan as SKS 10-11, and that would be money that we would use from the public building bond that was approved for this project, among others, and in the meantime, we would borrow from ourselves. Is that what you're suggesting, Julie? I think
Is there a
that's-
second?
Well, second.
Is there discussion? Is there discussion? I feel like it's an open meeting.
My discussion that I just had, I mean, I would just
I think-
think that we want to get it, I would just want to get it, this is like the last critical part.
Right.
Get it done now, where everybody, like you just said, everybody knows what they're doing. We don't have to remobilize everything, set everything all back up again. It could get done relatively quickly, probably, and then the building will be in relatively good shape, and there's just like small little projects after that.
It's
I agree.
anticipated
Reducing our
to be
risks.
the last part.
Well,
It's
I'd like to-
anticipated.
I'd like to just say that I understand this thought to try to bring everything to completion, which is a good idea generally. But the trouble is, it's probably a little bit arbitrary, these priorities, because what we really want is to meet all of the demands that are on this list of number of things that aren't complete. So even if we toss in another 53,000, there's still going to be some more work to do. And there is the risk that between that 53,000 and anything else that comes up, that we'll be over budget, pushing to $2 million. So I can't myself, in good conscience, vote for this move at this juncture.
It's 119.
Okay. Any other discussion?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, I see your side of it as well. I'd like to get the whole building taken care of, but in terms of our own life cycle maintenance and what our annual building maintenance is for a structure of that type, if we were understanding that in a grand plan, when you roof or you paint on a normal structure, the masonry upkeep has got an annual budget to it, and that's perhaps somewhere between a $20 and a $30 million building in terms of trying to construct something of that type today. So the annual investment to keep that thing whole and intact, it's not insignificant, and it is something to appreciate and to maintain, and we're fairly close to doing that. But I would, and I intend to work with these folks to try to find another grant to try to address the remaining items and any other enhancements we can have to kind of lower the total ownership cost in general. And there are shielding mechanisms where you can prevent penetration from the top, where they clad it with different metals and things like that. There are things that you can continue to resist time and maintain that building in different facets. But I do believe this one section where it's at, we are preventing further shifts.
Right.
Now, within the scope of what we did modify within the Maritime Center, and we were changing the walls and loading them differently, we could have caused something catastrophic if we did not actually enhance the structures all around those areas. This is a little outside of that scope, and you could group it with the others. It's just we're close enough to be able to close this one higher priority item, but I think we still are pursuing another grant. And there are ways to, not just the prioritized items there, but we'd probably go after a slightly larger grant to try to make it more sustainable. And there certainly half the building was untouched by this renovation and could gain by some other repurposing and how we try to direct that. But if you chose not to go after the structure at this moment, we'd certainly be more aggressive in trying to find a grant quicker to get it in place before we had something that grew in size or scope. And the remaining funds, there are ways to enhance, by putting in some acoustic tiles that get the noise level down, or adjusting the airborne, structure-borne noise off that heating system, and getting something more efficient, makes it sustainable from a utility standpoint, and also enhances the use of the space. So there's not just one answer here, but we believe as a group that we've chosen the highest priority that protects our investment and ensures that we get the most value out of the grant monies that we've got now, and sets us up with a nice stage. But we're not going to let go of this building. We're going to look for other ways to kind of lower the life cycle cost and ensure that we get this structure for a long time to come.
Perfect.
Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second to approve up to $55,000 to complete.
I said 60.
Excuse me, I wrote 55, my apologies. Up to $60,000 for section SKS 10-11. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
So we have a 4-1.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item, item I-7, Mr. Chairman and members of the Town Council, is correspondence from the Administrator regarding downtown trash and recyclables.
Yes, thumbs up. Yeah, that's very true. This is something that I know the chair, myself, Ed Tanner, have had quite a few conversations around this topic. If you've taken a walk around downtown, most recent, you'll see that, including Thames Street, that the trash containers have been retrofit to ensure that residents don't help themselves for their disposal, but rather for the small items from the transit and the traffic, pedestrian traffic. Along with that, we will have, there is some additional recycling containers that will be placed next to it, so we'll have pretty much a clean downtown area, should be pretty clean, and be maintained clean with the systems that we install it.
Beautiful.
So I have to thank Ed for being persistent in following through on this for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tony.
Make a motion to receive and file.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Good.
The We have several bids and RFPs this evening, more than we've had at one night for a long time. The first is RFP 840, and there was one RFP that was received from Benjamin Bergenholtz. As you well understand, it's a rather complicated thing, so it will require certainly some understanding of exactly what is being proposed. The next is bid number 842. This is for the Community Development Block Grant Home Repair Inspection and Design Specification Services. I'm just providing the initial inspection fees because there's quite a bit to go through on this because there were different component parts, but it basically worked out like this. John M. Desautels of Wood Street, Bristol, provides a proposal of $105 for initial inspection. Wood Frame Structures of Warren, $280 for initial inspection. And Blue Skies Construction Design LLC of Providence, $300 for initial inspection. Do you want to take these individually?
No, we'll do them all together, please.
Okay. I mean, they probably would be referred to others, right?
Oh, right.
Yeah, the referrals.
That's a great point, Mr.
So,
Coach.
I'm sorry, back to J1.
So we need a motion on J1, please.
So that is to refer to the administrator and I believe the Department of Community Development to act in the best interest of the town.
Well, I just like...
Well, they have to come back to us with that, right, for this one?
I just like to comment
Yeah, I
on
think
J1.
to come back to us at the next meeting with...
With a recommendation?
Recommendation and review.
Diane, did you hear that?
Yes.
We're going to refer this to you and the administrator and you, so it can come back to us at the next meeting with more information on J1. That's the 385 High Street.
That's the...
I think that's absolutely vital, because we need to look at
Ben's
that
at 385.
whole proposition as a business that the town's getting into, and we need to decide whether it's a good business for a town to run. In other words, if the proposal is weak and we're not going to make any money on it, we may not want to do it. So it needs to come back to the council.
And it will, and that was exactly what was motioned.
Right.
We all agree. So all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next one was that Community Development Block Grant Home Repair Inspection. That would be to refer to...
Administrator and Department of Community Development to act in the best interest.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the third one is J3. This is the fire alarm replacement bid number 843. There were three proposals received. The first from AFA Protection Systems Incorporated of Warwick in the amount of $34,900. The second from Metro USA Fire Protection Incorporated of Pawtucket, the amount of $460, and the third from Red Hawk Fire and Safety of Taunton, Massachusetts, in the amount of $31,179.
I say same motion, but to the administrator and the fire chief.
Second.
All in favor?
This one doesn't have it. I'm going to guess this is going to be DPW's.
I'm going to say that again. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And the next is the bid number 844, the road resurfacing project. You have 6 bids. The first is from P.J. Keating Company of Lunenburg, Massachusetts, in the amount of $773,816.50. The second from Cardi Corporation of Warwick in the amount of $492,110. The third is J.H. Lynch and Sons of Cumberland in the amount of $599,989. The fourth, D'Ambra Construction Company of Warwick in the amount of $574,930. The fifth being Narragansett Improvement Company of Providence in the amount of $597,615, and the final is Pawtucket Hot Mix Asphalt Incorporated of Pawtucket, the amount of $578,805.
I move that this be conveyed to the town administrator and the director of public works to deal with it and act in the best interest of the town.
Second.
All in favor?
So,
Wait.
relatively, hearing all those amounts, I think you should all be aware of the estimated cost associated with your resolution that you passed tonight. Some of those low bids were coming out ahead, believe it or not. So that's good news.
Coming out ahead, we're half.
I know, some of them,
It's
I mean, it's
50% off.
pretty good.
I know, so.
You got it. So true.
So I think that was
That
underestimated.
really happened, sounds good.
Except
We're
for the
over.
top one, that's a little, wow, that's a
So
big
the
difference.
motion was to refer to the administrator and department, excuse me, and
DPW.
Director
Got
of
it.
DPW. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Item J5, that was the flood awareness signage, fabrication installation. There were no bids received.
Not a very hot project, is it?
Refer to no one?
Do we re-advertise, or, Lou, what do we do?
I mean, once the bids have been done, it's typically the council can either decide to re-advertise or to allow the administration to go onto the open market.
Yeah, probably should re-advertise, yeah.
I mean, you can re-advertise 100 times, spend a bunch of money on advertising, get nowhere.
Well, so let's go on to
What do
the
you wanna
open
do?
market and come back to the council with what you
I
find.
mean, well, you
Great.
got the guy that's doing the other signs, right?
We are,
Street signs.
This is a grant, and I am looking at a deadline, so I'd like to go to the open market if I can.
That's why we're asking, just want to know where you want to go.
Can we have a motion, can we have a motion to that effect?
Refer to
Most-
Diane to go out on the
Open market.
open market. Do to refer, or is it just approve her to do that?
I think if you just approve that the town can go to the open market for this particular project. I mean, the public was informed, you went through the process. The solicitor, I'm sure, would back me up on this, is that you don't have to keep a million times asking for bids. If nobody comes in, you got to bang on some doors.
Solicitor would have already spoken up if it wasn't.
That's
a
right.
good idea.
So I heard a motion, is there a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Okay, and the final one is the MPA4. This is for the asbestos abatement former rental school. We have the Yankee Fiber Control of Seekonk, Massachusetts, in the amount of $49,302. AA Asbestos Abatement Company of Johnston, $22,580. SiteCon Corporation of Cranston, $36,991. And finally, Atlantic Abatement and Construction Incorporated of Providence, $40,800.
Mary, you're on a roll.
I'm on a roll, so I'll refer this to, I'm going to guess this is DPW. Is that right? No? Who is that? The administrator and someone else?
And it's me and Matt Coloriso
Oh,
who will
Matt
be dealing with
Calabese,
this.
Okay. To,
And the building
give these-
inspector, I'm sorry,
And the building
yes.
inspector, yeah, to act in the best interest.
And all affiliations of departments that
And
are with
everybody that
administration.
Anybody else that's
Anybody
interested?
that's interested, right.
Motion is second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any
That wants
opposed?
to learn about asbestos.
Thank you.
Okay, the next item is an executive session request, and following that is yet another one, and then we have item L3 concerning the town, rather Gendro versus the town of Bristol and others.
And others.
At all. Solicitor.
Thank you. This is a covered memo from our office, plus a copy of a case from the United States District Court for the District of Rhode Island. It was a case where someone requested a permit for concealed carry for a handgun. That is dealt with under Rhode Island statutory law. That's the local police chiefs. And our police chief had denied that permit. It was appealed. There was a long, convoluted court process through the Rhode Island Supreme Court. It was then in the federal court, and I'm happy to say that the town did prevail in this case, eventually upholding the decision of the police chief that there was not a right that was, there were no rights violated by the police chief's action.
And Chief, we obviously, all of us supported you throughout all the stuff, and hats off. I know you didn't give up on this, and it was just super important to you, or very important to you. Did you want to add anything?
I'll just add that I appreciate the support, and as I said before, I think the reason for this is to make sure our citizens of our community are safe at all times. I'm not against issuing gun permits. There's a system in place, and I just ask that anyone that is interested follow the system, and if it works for them, the person will be granted the permit. But again, I appreciate the support of the council, the administrator, for following me through with this, and As the solicitor said, it's case law. I can tell you I've been contacted by several chiefs throughout the state and by other solicitors from other communities. It definitely was a good day for law enforcement and for the communities at large throughout the state. Thank you again.
Well, I think it's a terrific job for everybody involved, and, you know, it's really a landmark decision that's going to have tremendous benefit as a precedent in the years to come.
Do we need a receive and file motion on that?
Yep.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
The next, the individual council member agenda items, beginning with the chairman.
Sunday was another, yeah, I said it, another Eagle Court of Honor. We are just, it's impressive how many Eagle Scouts we've had from the town of Bristol. This Sunday was James Fallon, who was his Eagle Court of Honor that a few of us attended. And as always, it's a pleasure to be there. It's an impressive thing to do. In fact, I was talking to one of the parents afterwards, and discussion came up about, you know, we've got, the kids have iPads and this and that, and there's so many things to take them down another path. And this speaks to the parents' leadership, this speaks to Scout leadership, and ultimately, James and anyone who has achieved the rank of Eagle Scout's impressive. Roger Williams' graduation happened. It's gone. A little quieter around town. Not necessarily a bad thing, not necessarily a good thing, but, you know, a little bit of quiet right now. Yesterday? No, Tuesday. Boy, yeah, it was yesterday, wasn't it? We have 4 new police officers, and we also have 2 new sergeants, right, Chief? No. 1 new sergeant, right, Chief? Yeah. Could you tell us who they are? Nice recovery, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sure. Again, I appreciate the acknowledgement on the 4 new officers that graduated Friday, May 20th, all in the top 10 out of 42 candidates of the class. 1 received the Firearms Award, the second was Code of Ethics Award, so I think we got a pretty good group. First one is an individual by the name of Alexander Booth. We have a Derek Jensen, a Michael Connor, and a Joseph Cilio. The rank of sergeant was obtained by Brett Estrella, who's a 10-year veteran of the department, who's been elevated to the rank of sergeant. So again, thank you very much for your acknowledgement of these officers. I believe they're good fits, and it just continues to fill the backfill of, as you know, the officers that we've lost over the years, and unfortunately, July's around the corner, and I have 3 other ones that more than likely will be leaving the department for various reasons, retirement or just moving on to other employment. So thank you very much.
Just like the Eagle Scout, it's, in fact, I said it yesterday, is that we have an opportunity, we all have an opportunity to be in different parts of the state, talk to different towns and communities, and invariably we hear such positive things about not only our town, but our police department, and just how people are treated. They feel welcome, they feel safe, they know if bad things happen, then good people will be there to help them. So I hear it all the time. So nice job to you and your department.
Thank you.
Last thing I'll leave you with is that we said that we would make sure that we keep top-of-mind awareness on the November question for the ballot in regards to $17 million. We said that we want to put that out there to make sure that we can continue doing all of these roads, and maybe at 50% of the cost, which would be great news. That referendum would include money for roads, a lot of money for drainage, money for open space, among other things. And I think it's important that we continue to talk about that, and also to say how important it is that we do this work that we're doing to make Bristol a better place. Thank you.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yeah, I'm excited to tell you on a personal note, I'm going to Haiti in October. As you know, I work for Alex and Ani, and we do a lot of community outreach, and they had a competition, and it's partnered with Living Water International. So many of us, we enjoy clean water, but for those third world countries, they don't get to enjoy a lot of clean water. So I'll be going over for a week to help out with some other coworkers to help create wells with the engineers. So I think it'll be a neat program, and really cool and fortunate to be able to be picked for the that program. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And then I read recently that Halsey in the newspaper in running, and I want to say, Halsey, that it's been truly an honor. I know we're not done yet. We still have a lot of great things to do, but I've really enjoyed my time with you and on the council, and you're going to be missed. And anyway, I just want to say it's been an honor to work with you so far.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you. And everybody out there, have a great Memorial Day weekend. Oh, sorry.
Ms. Burrell.
Thank you. I thought Halsey was going to maybe make a comment about that. I think his...
Yeah, I didn't want to say anything, delete it, so.
So, well, Halsey, I will say the same. It's been, you've done an amazing job in your long and illustrious career in government and as a civil, public servant. The first, I think what we all think about who's lived in town for a long period of time and certainly followed government is the work on the parks. I mean, I think that is sort of like the crown jewel of everything you've probably done, because if it weren't for you and the council back in your administration as administrator, Mr. Izello, I don't know that we would have such beautiful parks. I mean, Wally Street Park, Wally Park, and Independence Park. It's really, you've done such a great job in having the vision and making sure it gets done and everything looking beautiful. And I think that is probably the biggest tribute that I think comes to people's mind. And then so much that you have contributed and so much knowledge that you have, certainly on everything, but certainly in the marine area, and it's just too long a list to really enumerate it all. But I think you've contributed so much to the town. I really appreciate all of it. And I know, I think you're going to be very much missed on this council. And I think we all wish you well. I know you've talked about it on and off, like every year, say, I don't think I'm going to run again. But then, I don't think anybody ever thought you really wouldn't run. So what I heard about it yesterday officially, and I said, wow, it's official. And the reporter said, yes, he came in and he told me. I said, well, if it's in the paper, then it must be real. So best to, there's many more meetings and many more things that we're all going to be doing, but, certainly the best to you and in making that decision, because I don't think it could be an easy decision after all the years that you've devoted to the town of Bristol and to the people of Bristol. So.
Thank you very much, Mary. I appreciate those nice words.
Yeah, thank you. And other than that, but we had the hot weather today to really kick off the Memorial Day weekend, which is in a few days, and our Memorial Day parade and festivities and events take place at 9:30 is the speaking program at North Burial Ground. Am I correct on the time? 9:30. Followed by a parade that will go from North Burial Ground down Hope Street to the Veterans Garden here. So please come out and join us and pay tribute to all of those who've gone before us. Thank you very much.
Mr. Stewart.
We have Flag Day. Mary had mentioned Memorial Day. Flag Day is June 14th on the Town Common at 6 o'clock. Happy Father's Day to all fathers. Councilman Sweeney, that's the adventure. I've been to Haiti, but on the other side. So that's good news that you gave us this evening. And like the chairman said, congratulations to all the graduates, whether it be the university or the high school members. And best of luck to them in their future. And I will also lead, so I'm going to try to do this, but Halsey and myself go way back from when I met him when I was 17. I don't want to date myself, but it was a pleasure to work for you, a pleasure to negotiate with you, and at the end of trials, serving with you. But I think the best part, and even though, he's Republican, I'm Democrat, is when we leave these chambers. I consider Halsey a very good friend. I valued our discussions. I look forward to more discussions. And you will be missed on this council, because time and time again, when we used to discuss things, like Mary said every year, you think I should run? Of course you should run, because you're such a valuable asset to the town and what you contribute, and also it's a pleasure serving with you. But then after I say that, I go, yeah, but you got to enjoy life, and you're at that age where you should be enjoying yourself, and you should be enjoying everything you have. So, but I don't want to go on and on. It's just you're a dear friend, and like we still have more work to do, and Well, now you could be my campaign manager, so that'd be a great bipartisan thing, so.
Well, thank you very much, Eddie. That's very nice.
And just lastly, welcome back, Mark, and if you could just incline me your name. Matthew, thank you for filming tonight. Thank you for everybody coming out and everybody looking at home. Have a great night.
Mr. Hersol.
Well, I might just add one or two comments about the fact that I have decided to retire from the council. It was a hard decision, a little bit like the decision I made 22 years ago to retire from being town administrator. That was in 1994. I have served more than a third of a century, 34 years, and as I wrote for the Phoenix, I think that maybe I've served longer than any other elected officer of the town, except for John Church, whose portrait's over here somewhere, who served, I think, somewhat longer than 34 years, but I think he's the only elected official that did go longer. It's been generally very agreeable and fun even, and certainly there are great satisfactions when things go right. They don't always go right, but when they do and something seeming of significance happens and it helps people, then I think any of us here that work for the town feel very good about it, and maybe that's one of the most important things that you get out of it. I often think about the fact that we do have a very civilized town, more so than it used to be, really. We have a real process. Everybody at this table cares a lot to do the right thing. We don't always agree. And by the way, if we all always agreed, we wouldn't have any use here, because it's much more important that we bring forward different ideas. And it's also important that everybody keeps her or his head up, because if you miss a vote once in a while, let it go and just go on to the next thing. And that's what we have to do in order to properly serve. But you're all going to do just fine without me. I'm going to cheer you on. But you may hear from me once in a while, and I'm not going away. I'm going to hang out, and I'm going to continue to try to help the town of Bristol, but not in quite so demonstrative a way as I have been privileged to do over these years. So I thank you all, and I congratulate you all, and I wish the best for our next 6 months and for your years after that.
Thank you.
Town Administrator agenda items.
Well, Councilman Hershoff, the chief just leaned to me, he says, you're responsible for hiring him, so here he is.
That was one of the best things I ever did.
Thank you.
With that, I'm going to reserve some comments. I know he's still going to be around with us for much longer, until November, so I'll reserve my comments for then. I know the paper did call me, and they probably already read some of them on the newspaper, but I'll reserve those for then. Today, I had the pleasure to be downtown. The flowers are up, the baskets. They were hung today, so I spent a little time in running around behind the trucks, helping unloading some flowers. So we have to thank all the volunteers from Bristol Blooms, as well as the police department, for assisting in keeping us safe, escorting the trucks, just to make sure that as we ran back and forth, placing the flowers on the sidewalk, and some of the folks coming along and hanging them. Took all of about 2.5 hours, a good, very coordinated process, so that was awesome to see that happen. As was already stated, the high school graduation is coming up, June 11th, so we wish the best, and I know we've already congratulated them. Having been someone who worked there 31 years, this is always a time to, in fact, I was at retirement of Mr. Rebello, who is leaving the high school. The vice principal is taking over, but they're in good hands, and things are moving along pretty nicely there. Also, happy Father's Day. let's not forget. And the other thing is I provided a couple updates there for you. One has to do with Medicum Avenue, the water main. And I'm going to let Chief just speak briefly on that because he's more in the works of that since he has to oversee all the offices there for security. And the other one that I provided to you was also the energy savings project. And initially the cost was to do the purchase of the lights would have been $49,000. With the assistance of the chief and the officers that verified the inventory, were able to reduce the cost of $41,162. And the item pending at this point is to sign an agreement with the maintenance Siemens, who will be on board, and they'll be the maintenance maintenance contractor going forward. So we need to make sure we have them on board as we purchase the lights, because what happens at 12:01, the day that National Grid turns over the contract, we obviously are responsible for those lights. So I'll pass the mic to Chief so that he can...
Yes, just so everyone knows, the construction process on Medicum Avenue with the Water Authority is moving right along. Weekly, I have a report from the detail officers. They are doing the best they can out there. There's days where you have 6 or 8 officers assigned out there to make sure that traffic flows as smoothly as we can, and if need be, to get emergency apparatus in and out of some of those side streets and down Medicum Avenue, whether it's the fire or the rescue or any other emergency equipment that needs to get down there. So what I would ask is that the residents that travel those roads continue to have some patience. They're doing the best they can. It's my understanding they lay anywhere from 100 to 200 feet a day. So we just need to be very patient. I know the weather's going to get a little warmer and sometimes it gets a little hotter in the car, but believe me, we have no interest in keeping you stopped any longer than we have to. We want to get everyone moving, and when there is a time when we have to stop you for a period of time, just understand there may be a reason. It's either because of an emergency vehicle coming down that way, or part of the construction team needs to move a piece of equipment, or even the school buses. There are a lot of moving components. We need to make sure that those youngsters are getting to school on time, but we have just another 2 or 3 weeks, and then they'll all be home and hopefully enjoying the summer. That being said, I have nothing else to add besides hopefully Memorial Day is a great day weather-wise, and we ask that all our residents go out there and continue to support our veterans. It's an important part of our community, and I assure you that the police department will be there, as we usually do, to support them and support the task of the community. Okay, have a good night.
Just briefly, the chief mentioned patience. I was contacted, or the office was contacted by 2 of the residents in the area of construction regarding their mail that was not delivered. I reached out to Bristol County Water Authority to work with the post office to make sure that they can make some arrangements and make sure that the mail is delivered on a daily basis. But the mail, I did not realize that until they called. The mail was skipped 2 days with some of the residents in the area, so obviously they were pretty upset, and I can understand. They expect their mail to be there daily, but so I've reached out and for them to work with the contractor and the post office to ensure that the mail gets delivered daily.
First off, regarding item L2, I would waive that request for executive session as regarding the litigation, Bristol Warren Regional School District. There's nothing to report. I would ask...
Motion to receive and file.
There's nothing to receive and file, just
the request.
Motion to remove it, to pass it from the agenda.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
And then a motion regarding L1 for executive session pursuant to Rhode Island General Laws 42-46-5A5, lease of real property, Guido's Shellfish and Restaurant.
So moved.
And we have the other one.
Right, okay, which is actually, yes, under the same section also for regarding open space acquisitions. To remain in an executive session under the same 42-46-5A5 for open space acquisitions.
We had a motion, is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Anything else? Good night, everyone. Thank you.